This is not a hostage video. Nice to see people, my BGPO. Oh, I don't know if you're here. That was a long time ago, 11:30. This normal Idaho mom. X is roasting Joseph. X is roasting Jess Machado, like the whole social media site. Christina was on Andy's channel, and she was giving us all the details. It's so interesting to hear from her after all this time, to finally fill in some of the details of how it all went, how it all came about. Maureen O'Connell, nice to see you. Phil for Dom Russo, nice to see you. MemX12, nice to see you. BMD Nut X2, nice to see you. Cindy Arnold, Old Woman of the Hills. Elizabeth W411, look at you all. Aren't you guys fun? So yeah, I'm happy to be here. I am at my sister's place where there is no obnoxious construction noise. Thank you for asking, just me. Hey, Garth David, I'm glad you made it. My back is starting to improve. It's much better today than it was yesterday. So I'm feeling like, hey, Janice Ballet Flats, yay. Maury, everybody's here. All the usual suspects. Oh, and look at that. That noise was the deposit for my new place being accepted by the estate agent. Lindsay, Decades of Darkness. Yay, glad everybody can make it. Yeah, so I did a poll I just made a poll post, and I asked if people would prefer if I responded to Dr. John on Taylor Parker or to the 9-hour live. And after a few days, the Taylor Parker one pulled ahead a little bit, so I planned a video for that. And now the 9-hour live has pulled ahead a bit, so I'm going to do that one too. So, the spinning wheel of death. You have the spinning wheel of death? Oh no, that's a bummer. Yes, me too. Thank you so much. You people are so nice. I am so glad I'm feeling better too. One of it's very frustrating to be super excited about moving and not be able to do anything. So I was sitting on my couch yesterday, sorting papers to make myself feel like I was doing something. But yeah, so a lot of you, I think, will probably have seen, hi, Miami Dottie, Grammy Cheryl. I think a lot of you will have seen the docket decoder video about, oh, good, Maureen O'Connell. Glad you could make it, not O'Connell, rather. We'll have seen the docket decoder video on a response to this Taylor Parker response from John. Hi, Hot Ham Radio. Glad you could make it. Hot Ham Radio's always got some good comments for the chat. So like I felt, one of the things that he said was that he felt that it was kind of hard to respond to because it was just such obvious projection the whole way through that it made it like sort of pointless to watch. Just me, says Brian Koberger, wants a new trial. John will be in hog heaven. Yeah. Hey, Salty Sleuth, glad you can make it. Yeah, he will. So gross. Yeah, you should watch it. It's good. I really like Dr. Dakota. I think he's done 2 videos on it now. And I think in the second one, he said he wasn't going to finish it. It's like 2 hours long. So, I mean, I'm not going to get through it all either. I doubt I don't have the patience to listen to John for that long. Well, that's nice. I always love having you here, Hot Ham Radio. John has some thoughts about Koberger that are, I don't know, I gave up. John on Koberger was when I gave up on them altogether. It was on the Koberger, the sentencing when he was such a jerk about Olivia Gonsalvez's statement that I just couldn't take it anymore. Anyway, I do have to do my thing and say here, I don't have any particular credentials. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a lawyer or anything like that. I'm an ex-mechanic with an English degree. These are just my opinions. I am just here for your entertainment and mine. And you can support the channel by liking, sharing, subscribing, penny chats, all that kind of stuff if you desire. Hello, HMS Gen X lady, glad you can make it. So yeah, so I thought I would, so one of the things that I remembered, actually, I don't think I'm going to start that way. Never mind. I think we'll just start watching it and then I'll talk about it later. So Salty Sleuth says, I have covered Koberger from day one, never watched John's cover, and John has a problem with Olivia G. Yeah, he said that she gave, if you will have seen her statement, I'm sure, when she stood up and gave her witness impact statement, and she tore him a new one, and she completely called him a loser and a jerk, and she absolutely was very up in her feelings, and I thought she was amazing. And then John got on his channel and said he didn't think that she should have done that because all she did was hand him the pleasure of knowing that he upset her, or some dumbass shit like that. And then I commented. I didn't have a channel at the time. I was just, my regular YouTube account. And I commented saying, I said I gave them a compliment first, said good to hear from Dr. John, but I feel like you kind of dumped on Olivia Gonsalves. And first time they had ever responded to anything I had said in their comments, and the response was, we didn't, we praised her. And that was the end of my association with Hidden True Crime. I never watched another one of their videos until I've never seen the 9-hour live either. So I've seen bits of it, like I've seen Turtle Boy's response videos and some of that. But yeah, John. So, and I think that the accusation with these guys and the Koberger thing seems to be that John is very much on the, yeah, that was not praise exactly, Lucia, that John seems to be very much on they seem to be very much on the side of the prosecution. And I don't know. I don't know. I didn't pay that much attention to it. I never liked them that much in the first place. And then that just super duper turned me off. So I just wanted to, so I think we'll just start with the video. I have some things I want to say about it, but I think it's probably better that I just say them as we go along. Hey, happy go ducky. Even Germany. Oh my goodness, you made it. John Ozemp. Yeah, he's in Ozemp. John Ozemp. Okay, so it's not a live, I guess. It's just a pre-recorded video, I guess. I don't see any chat, so I guess it was just a pre-recorded video. They got 963 comments. They have 359,000 subscribers at this point. How they have gained, they were down to 313, so that means that since all of this blew up, they have gained 47,000 subscribers, which beggars belief, so one must assume they're buying them. 164,000 views. Psychologist reacts. Dr. John Matthias breaks it down. Taylor Parker spent months convincing everyone around her that she was pregnant. The lie would end in one of the most shocking and disturbing crimes in recent history. In this episode, forensic psychologist Dr. John Matthias reacts to Netflix's Maternal Instinct, breaking down Taylor Parker's psychology. He does no such thing. Reported diagnoses, compulsive deception, and the motivations that may have led to the murder of Regan Simmons Hancock and the theft of her unborn child. Lauren and John discuss what Netflix got right, what was left out, and the psychological red flags that appeared long before the crime. How does someone become so invested in a false reality that they're willing to destroy multiple lives to maintain it? Hi, Just Jamie. Glad you could make it. You showed up just at the end yesterday, so now you're here just at the beginning. So great. Glad you could come. So yeah, something to look forward to. I like to give them a thumbs down every time I come across them for whatever reason. So here we go. We'll just start and we'll see how we get on. It's 2 hours long. I very much doubt I'm going to last 2 hours with these loonies. Yeah, I mean, yes, right? It's really bad. I mean, I haven't watched it. I've only seen the bits. I've watched Docket Dakota's response to it. So he was not able to get through the whole thing, and I don't expect that we will be able to get through the whole thing either. But I still think that it's worth watching because there's a bunch of stuff I wanted to point out. I went and watched the Maternal Instinct, and then I read up a little bit about the fetal abduction by maternal evisceration, which is the crime, what they call the crime in, criminology circles. Oh, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start with this. So I just made a very short 2-slide slideshow. And, oh, hang on a second. I didn't even share this video, did I? God, sorry. I'm a little out of it today. I think it's the muscle relaxants. So I need to remove that one first of all, and then add this one. Sorry. So let me actually go back. Let me go back and play from the beginning again, because you guys didn't hear it, which was the reason I moved it. Sorry. I'm going to try to pull it together as of now. All right. Starting from the beginning.
She also says that, quote,
it is called.
Okay. Sorry. Now.
She also says that, quote, she has to piece together parts of other people's real lives to make her feel a little bit more real. And that.
Okay. So that's where I stopped. And that's why I want to show you this, because I just made a very small 2-slideshow of things that were said in the video in the maternal instinct that made me think of Lauren. So number 2 there is what he's just quoted. She has to piece together parts of other people's lives to make hers seem real. So that was the first thing that reminded me of Lauren. There's 8 altogether. So starting with the first one is she mimicked people in all facets of life. All people see is the happy, smiling media presence, which is here, right? If you care to look through her Facebook photos, they're all perfectly curated to show what a happy life she has, full of friends and professional engagements and home and dogs and all the things, right? Everything carefully curated to be exactly like the person that they are over here talking about. So it just gets creepier as you go. Number 3, all people see is the happy, smiling media presence. She thrives off of validation from others. And hang on, let me see if it'll move. Maybe it won't. Oh, I don't have to, sorry, I have to escape it or something. There we go, and move it to the next one. There you go. She had multiple phones, accounts, and personas to manipulate behind the scenes. The Jessica that I used to be is gone. Now, that's not a quote about her, but it's a quote about somebody after they encountered her, right? And I think that it's fair to say that people who have tangled with Lauren have been changed by that, right? And that they have the thing that they're complaining about in their Patreon video, their faith crisis and their loss of innocence and all that, is what they do actually to other people, right? And then this other one, this number 7 kind of reminded me more of Megan, but I think it's true of Lauren as well. This is nothing new. She's always been a liar. And she was very insecure as a teen. And I think that's Lauren has told us all about that herself. And also Megan. So just to say that these are the same type of people. And I think it's important that people understand that these are Lauren and Megan and Trisha and these grifters. They are the same kind of people as the people that they report on. They have just never been, in a position. I mean, I'm not saying that Lauren would go that far or she wouldn't go that far, but I'm just saying, right? These are the same personality traits. The people that are describing this woman who murdered a pregnant woman to steal her baby are describing Lauren. And that's part of the reason. I mean, that's a big part of the reason why I do this at all, is because these people are dangerous. This isn't just mean girls tit for tatting each other, right? These people are dangerous. And they're in people's living rooms night after night after night, pretending to be something that they're not. So I just wanted to share those. And we'll go back to these idiots here.
That speaks exactly to this idea of the false self.
That's
the
profound.
the false self is an empty self. It's a construct that doesn't exist. She doesn't have a self.
Hello, Hidden Gems.
Hello.
We are back at our table, our dinner table, also known as our podcast table now. It's fair.
Lauren's putting on her voice. Lauren's putting on her Hi Hidden Gems voice. It's different than I hear you, but I'm just saying voice that she used with the cop. I hear you. I hear you, but yeah, right? The projection in this one is over the top, like it's so over the top, literally, that Dog and Dakota was like, I don't even know what the point is in responding to this. It is so much, so obviously projection. There's, what can you even say?
This point.
Yes, yes. And we are going to cover a wild Netflix documentary that just came out. It is called Maternal Instinct. It is heartbreaking. It follows the story of Taylor Parker, 27-year-old Taylor.
Lauren heard that it was heartbreaking because she doesn't know that from experience, even though she watched it.
Taylor Parker, she is actually on death row now. She has been convicted because what she did was in 2020, she faked a pregnancy at 27 years old with her fiance, Wade. Definitely didn't want to lose Wade. And once she's nearing 10 months pregnant, I guess she realizes, gee, there's something I need to do here. She goes as far as getting a prosthetic, belly, all of this stuff. And she then kills Reagan Hancock and Reagan Hancock's unborn baby, Braxlin, by attempting a C-section in the home, killing 21 years old, leaving her, Reagan's other child, motherless. Absolutely heartbreaking, her little girl. And
I mean, it's a terrible, terrible story. Lauren does not do it justice at all with her so shocking face. But I wanted to say Sally Jesse Raphael called and wants her glasses back, Walwyn. Thank you for that difficult research. I don't know, a lot of you are of the right age to remember Sally Jesse Raphael. I've used this one before, but it's worth repeating. Yes, it absolutely is. And I might even have to steal it. Somebody just said something over here about Netflix. Oh yeah. Okay. This is what I wanted to respond to. I wonder if they get paid to review Netflix or if they are trying to ingratiate themselves with Netflix in hopes of screen time. Two Birds says. So I think that you're probably right. I don't think that they get paid to review Netflix. I think that they were in the, the Sins of Our Mother, right? The one about Laurie Daybell. But I was thinking the other day as I was watching that for the first time, I was thinking that these two are actually kind of worthy of their very own Netflix special, because I think that the whole situation of sketchy creators in the true crime community on YouTube is a really fascinating story. And I think it would be just amazing if Netflix somehow got wind of the fact that one of the people that they had on one of their documentaries as a specialist, as an expert, was revealed to be a fraud, and all of his machinations to try to hide that from the public. I feel like that would be a really fascinating documentary, and I would be all over that if it were to come out. So just saying. Yes, difficult research. Crusha says, I think they grip onto anything that's going to get them clicks and views. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They're absolutely opportunists for sure, and they think the super sensational crimes are going to get a hold of them. Yeah, right, Miami Daddy. I think it would be I think it would be a great documentary. I think it would be absolutely fascinating to kind of reveal some of this stuff that goes on, right? There's a lot of shitty creators around, and these guys have been proven. Look at John's face, right? What a miserable fucking piece of work that man is. They have been revealed to be pretty awful, like pretty genuinely awful. right? And there is plenty of footage and all kinds of stuff for them to, the audio from the court and all the body cam stuff and all the the videos that the girls have. And, I feel like it would be fascinating. And not to mention all of the videos that have been made by all of the people in response, right? That they could, I think it would be fantastic. I have no idea how to make something like that happen, but I think it would be amazing. Yes, we were just talking about Sally Jesse Raphael, Sugar Gold. Great minds think alike. Gosh, you're making me laugh. Would it be a psychological thriller, though, having John as the main protagonist? Well, it would be a silly thriller, maybe. It's been thought of right now. The media isn't biting. Oh, okay. Thanks, Salty Sleuth. Thanks for letting me know. They're reading glasses, Kelly Kell, so I think she wears them to read. And she was just reading off her little thing that she wrote. Look at her with her yap open like that. God. She's reading. She's giving her a little rundown on the crime. Anyway, let's carry on. We'll be here forever.
And this was traumatizing to watch, very traumatizing. But we have questions. This is one of those documentaries that is difficult to watch, but we knew it was coming.
She already said that. I don't know if you noticed that, but Lauren doesn't really have anything to say, and she usually latches on to one or two phrases and repeats them 87 times. So she'll say it was difficult to watch, or it was hard to watch, or wow, I was really sad watching that, but she'll say the same thing in 8 different ways.
Coming out, we knew we wanted to talk about it. I know that you've been actually preparing for this even before the documentary came out, because this is a case that we want to talk about today. And you have your notes.
I've got a lot of
You
notes.
are ready.
Yep.
This is a case that I want to talk about today, and I have my notes and I am ready. How do you like my content so far? Pretty great.
And yeah, you do have a lot of notes.
And let me say too that, so I knew.
Kathy Shields says she wasn't traumatized, she was invigorated. And I was going to comment on that. I was going to say something about she wasn't traumatized. She just thinks that people, she thinks that that's the way that people would respond to that. And I watched it. And it was, there were bits of it that were hard to watch for sure, but I didn't find it particularly traumatizing, mostly because they actually handled it fairly, with kid gloves, right? It wasn't super graphic and super salacious by any means, considering what it could have been. So again, I think that's Lauren mimicking, right? She's pretending to be a person. Like. Yes, she does say that a lot. Like.
About this case, because when we first started this podcast many moons ago, it was shortly after we started that I remember this case came out. It was so bizarre and so unusual. Fetal abduction is one of the rarest types of homicide, by the way. They are really unusual, especially fetal abductors of this nature.
So he's going to use that as an excuse to not be able to respond to this in any meaningful way. We were talking about that, Mary O'Neill. We were talking about Docket Decoder did a great job of this. He always does. I really like him.
And so where there's actually a procedure performed on the mother.
Googling C-sections, how to do a C-section.
Yeah, she's right. That's
just one of her many Google search results.
So,
right. So that's Lauren likes the salacious details, and she likes, see, it was really terrible. It was really traumatizing. I'm really traumatized. See, but what she doesn't know, and neither does John, is how many other people who committed this crime did the same thing.
I remember this case fairly well, because there was a moment when I had talked to you about possibly covering it, and I thought,
remember,
we were immersed in another case, and it was overwhelming. But I remember the case, and I remember some of the details. So there are elements of this case that were not discussed in the documentary that we'll be talking about, and I think that will give us a fuller picture of what happened. But it's truly a sad case. I was very emotional.
Oh God, I was so emotional. I was very empathic for all of the babies. Deanne, you're actually not that late. We only just really started a few minutes ago with this part. We're only 3 minutes in. Hello, amazingly true. Michelle and Matthias, you guys are not that late. We only just started on the, the meat of the thing here. Look at Lauren. Look at her face. She is a freak of nature, people.
I was surprisingly emotional during parts of this document.
Sorry, that was a mean girl thing to say. It was true. But...
Yeah. And,
yeah.
Just the way it happened, and
Reagan's family, the way they painted that for me was really sad.
Reagan's family and Kinley,
Lauren felt really sad for the family whose daughter and grandchild were murdered. It was extremely sad. She felt very sad. She was sad for those people. She really was. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Ski Utah. Hi, Bridgeton. That's a good name. Unused barren area. Nice to see you. I feel like we could put a data center in you.
Who was 3-year-old. She was a 3-year-old at the time of the murders.
Hiding in the bedroom.
But apparently she certainly heard what was going on, but there was some speculation that she actually came out at one point.
Yeah.
And so just that.
Do you hear that? Lauren's voice got all husky there. It's very upsetting for her to imagine this poor child going through that. Lauren's pretty empathic. I'm not sure you guys know.
That situation is so heartbreaking. And I just can't even imagine that type of moment for any child.
Oh, God. I mean, this is the thing with these people. They make you do things like defend Lori Vallow and laugh when they're talking about these horrific things because they are so inauthentic that they sound absolutely ridiculous. They're looking at each other to go, yeah, right? It was terrible, right? Yeah, it was so terrible. And it just feels like neither of them feel any of it. So I'm laughing while they're talking about this. And please know that I'm laughing at them, not at any of the victims of this horrendous crime. Thank you for the jewels. I still don't really know what those are, but thank you very much. I'm going to have to look into that.
I mean, thankfully she's alive, but still.
And Reagan's sister and parents all saying that she was the best mother and that she was just born to be a mother and so excited to have her second little girl.
Right? Unlike Lauren, right? You notice that wasn't on the list of things that were said that reminded me of Lauren.
There were definitely some very emotional moments during this documentary and just in following this case in general. So it's a case that I wanted to talk about for a while, and we just haven't had the opportunity. And so when this documentary dropped, I thought it would be a natural opportunity to think about it. And we both watched it yesterday separately so that we didn't. So I haven't talked to you about it.
Yeah,
I think
we're doing that again. We actually.
Yeah, we don't care about your little marital weirdness, honestly. Creators get 100% of the value of jewels. Oh, okay. I didn't even know. Oh, thanks, Two Birds. And thank you so much for the jewels hoop. Sorry, I didn't even notice who that was from. I'm a terrible person over here. At Gen X is over it. Yeah, that is very true. Finger heart. Finger heart to you. Look, I don't know how to make it actually look like a heart. I'm old, sorry. But thank you. You guys are the best. Okay, let's go back to Lauren because she looks like she's really got some important things to say here quick before her Botox wears off.
Surprise some people by some of our conversation in the last documentary that we discussed, by the way. And some people thought, did you guys rehearse this? That I was maybe being a bit of a pushing you. But no, that's actually how our conversations sometimes go.
We when we cover cases on our show.
Right. So this part is meant to make you think oh, these guys are so authentic and they're so approachable. They're so relatable. They're just like us. They have little marital things just like we do. We're so relatable, right? This is the authentic John and Lauren, and it makes them seem even less authentic than they already did.
So like this from documentaries, our preference is to watch them separately or watch them at separate.
There were tears, Aussie Cheryl. I'm not sure if you and Amanda are aware. that there were tears coming out of Lauren's eyes. Tears coming out of her eyes. She told us.
Times, so that we don't know what we're going to say, that there's
Which
more
is hard
spontaneity.
because sometimes we like to watch them
Yeah,
together. Although
true.
he pauses way too much. These notes, sometimes I'm like, I just want to sit with, and watch.
Yeah, there's no
you're like pausing and taking notes. So I don't mind that either.
There's no watching true crime documents for entertainment.
I mean, you know what? This is the stuff that makes their content so amazing, right? It's what puts it a step above everybody else. Just they're a cut above.
For me, it's unfortunately, because of what I do, I think it's always going to be work to some degree, or at least it's. One of my psychologist friends used to joke all the time with me and say, "Do you ever take a moment not to think about true crime? do you eat, breathe, and sleep true crime? Because that's the only thing that seems to be on your mind." I'm like, well, not really. It's pretty all consuming. And we do have a life and a child. So the answer is.
Great story, John. Well, they have, they have like Prey, I think is what it's called.
That's not the only thing that occupies my mind, but I do have a passion for true crime and for figuring out.
He literally has a passion for reading books and then getting paid lots and lots of money to read those books online.
Motivations behind crimes like this. So with that, should we dive in? Do you feel like you've given us enough background?
I think I've given enough background. That was another request we had to make sure that we give that background before we start talking, because I think we always come on and aren't sure how much to say right away because we know that there are going to be spoiler alerts. But I think at this point, people understand that we are going to be covering, if you see the title to this, a Netflix documentary. So clearly there will be spoilers, but we hope you'll stay with us.
So people have asked me about this crime.
Why is Lauren shiny? Many have asked. No one is sure. It's like some sort of like she produces some kind of a slime. We're not sure.
By the way, over the years, and people are just baffled by this crime. I think, by the way, the correct terminology for this type of crime, it's in the research, it's referred to as fetal abduction by maternal evisceration. So that's a mouthful, but that's how researchers refer to this type of crime. There's different types of fetal abduction. This one happens to be by, as you said, C-section, by pulling the child out. That's maternal evisceration. So I think one thing to be.
Deadly Queen says Botox makes you look shiny. Does it? Yeah. Does it like? I'm wondering if it's like pulling her skin tight so that it makes it look shiny. That was what I was wondering. But also, I think that she exudes a kind of a self-absorbed slime. Somebody said it up here. I can't remember anybody's, but yeah.
Begin with is just to say that fetal abduction by maternal evisceration is very, very rare. They're extremely rare. And so the research on this type of crime it's really hard to reach any conclusions because there's just not a lot of data. There's not a, if you want to do research, the more data you have, the more solid your conclusions are going to be. And there's just not that much data. So between 1987 and 2011, there's only been 15 completed cases. So 15 completed non-family cases.
When you say completed, you mean?
Cases where the baby was.
What everybody thinks he means, Lauren. Do you really need him to spell it out? Does that make you feel better? Do you think that you're making it clearer for the audience?
Removed, and there was a death. There was a homicide.
Okay.
And
actually, oh yeah, okay.
The offender, the perpetrator, was not a family member. So they wouldn't, if it was a family member, that presents a little bit of a different situation. So in these cases, typically they're strangers. So over a period of over 20 years, you have 15 of these. So you have less than one per year. And if you think about the millions of people in this country, right, that's a very, very small number. And so we don't see a lot of these crimes.
I mean, there should be zero.
There should be zero.
But yeah,
Agreed.
right. But one a year. Wow.
There should less than one. So
fewer than one.
Fewer than one. So I think I want to start with that, because what I'm going to talk about is going to be speculative. I will base some of this on research that we have, but we have there's so few cases here that, to generalize or draw conclusions about what's going on here.
Lucia says, does he cite what he's reading from? No, he doesn't, but I can show you what he's reading from. I'm pretty sure this is what he's reading from. Fetal abduction by maternal evisceration, a planned homicide. And, I Googled fetal abduction, and this is the first paper that popped up. And I copied the title of it and went over to my university library, and they allowed me access to it. And it's actually quite informative. And he, from what I recall from the docket decoder one, he just really glosses over a lot of it, because, I mean, I realize, yes, obviously 15 cases is very few, but there's actually a lot of really good data in here. They got a lot of information, and I think that the stuff that they got out of the 15 is enough to show you quite a bit about the motivations for the crime, what type of a person is committing the crime, what type of a person is the victim of this crime, what types of things need to be done to prevent things from happening in the future. And he just glosses over this as though it's nothing. And it's actually, I thought it was really interesting. And I'm not a scientist or whatever, but I felt like you could draw some pretty good conclusions that would be useful in the real world. And that's literally the whole point of doing the study, right? So just to say, once again, John's a fucking idiot. And I don't know why he would feel like he needed to. I mean, if the scientists that did the study felt that 15 people was enough for them to do the study, yeah, because they didn't want to make it fame, right? Fetal abduction by maternal evisceration would be fame. Yeah. Anyway, I just if they felt that they had enough data to publish their results and to say, sorry, it's people texting me. Sorry. I was just trying to turn it off, but I should have done that ahead of time. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just think he's full of shit. I don't know why he goes on to say that he's going to talk about basically murder and not fetal abduction by maternal evisceration because there's not enough data. And in my opinion, he's wrong.
It would be very difficult. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to look more broadly at, say, personality disorders and violence, or personality disorders and certain elements of, let's say, childhood that lead to personality disorders, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just super maddening to me, right? He's like, oh, I have to broaden it to be so broad that it encompasses almost every violent criminal in the country. The prisons are full of people with personality disorders, right? It's way too fucking broad. And there were some very important conclusions drawn from that study that he has just pushed aside as saying it's not very important. And it's super maddening. And I'm going to read you some of that later just because I'm so mad about him being such a jerk about it. And I feel like the information should actually be out there. This is their whole thing, right? Isn't this supposed to be their whole thing, that they're getting the motivations out there so people can understand and people can see ahead of time and maybe prevent these things from happening because they understood the motivations, right? And here he is making this so broad that it's anybody with a personality disorder who commits a violent crime.
And so I'm going to look more broadly at the bigger picture. And these elements may or may not apply to Taylor
Okay.
Parker. So I'm not going to say anything definitively about Taylor Parker because I really can't, because again, the data set is so small. I will talk about some of those findings,
I'm going to
but
talk about it now because shut up, John. There were plenty of findings, and they were quite interesting. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but it's just so annoying that he's talking about it this way. So this is the abstract says, the objective fetal abduction by maternal evisceration cases are statistically rare, but warrant closer scrutiny as planned homicides. This study reports lessons regarding abductor modus operandi, motivation, intent, planning, and the dynamics in the attack to inform public safety. So that's like a lot of stuff, right? Methods, the 15 FAME, I guess is how it would be pronounced, cases reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children from 1987 to 2011 were reviewed. Court documents for the cases were retrieved, and investigators and attorneys were called to verify information where necessary. Results. All abductors were female, between 19 and 40 years of age. 7 stages of the structure of the crime were identified: targeting and making contact with a pregnant woman, securing weapons, determining the location, subduing the mother, securing the newborn, disposing of the victim's mother's body, and informing others that they had birthed the child. Conclusion: the case histories analyzed demonstrate how FAME perpetrators target an unsuspecting pregnant woman and entrap and murder her in the service of fetal kidnapping. Awareness of FAME promotes public safety from those who would do anything to claim they have borne a child. And he dismisses all this as not good enough, and he needs to move on to personality disorders and violence instead. So, just saying, I would have liked to hear that if I was watching him, right? I would have liked to hear that. That is the source he's got. It has to be, because it's exactly the same 15 cases and that he's talking about and everything, in the same years and all the stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's the same source. It's also the very first thing that comes up when you Google fetal abduction. So just saying.
and I think that'll help us figure this out to some degree. But I want to start with, there's really a couple of interesting things going on here, I think. I want to start with,
Maybe, hey?
because this was in Texas, when there's a conviction, they have a death penalty phase to the trial. And during that phase of the trial, the prosecutor led in his opening statements by referring to Taylor Parker as the following things. So he said, she's a liar, a con artist, an actress, and a fraud.
He's talking about his wife, who's sitting right next to him.
And he would prove that she was all of those things, and therefore the crime was premeditated. It wasn't impulsive, that she had planned this out. And those are the elements that the prosecutor really saw as being crucial to understanding this crime and understanding her.
Did you see that? John looked at the camera. Bing bong.
That everything about her is false. Everything about her is deception. And so
everything. I think, to me, that was the most shocking thing. I'll just say this, because I did understand the.
Lauren says that a lot. That's one of her little pet phrases. I'll just say this. He's literally describing Lauren. Like, this whole thing is so creepy.
Case I was getting into, and I understood what happened, but I did not understand all those little details and everything. When we say everything is deception, everything. Just everything.
Almost everything that comes out of her mouth is a lie.
Or texts, or yeah.
Like these two, right? These two are total frauds, and they're everything that they are pretending to be. It's literally everything with them. They are describing themselves. I can't tell how much. My feeling is that John is extremely hooked in with Lauren, like that he doesn't. I don't think he sees her clearly at all. I don't think that he sees her clearly and is trying to keep her out of trouble and keep their business from going or whatever. I think he is in like Flynn with all of this shit. And is just as is just as disordered as his wife, honestly.
I mean,
And so,
Yeah.
So I think when I think about somebody who is lying about everything to the core, the first thing I think about is this idea of, there's a British psychoanalyst, I've talked about him a lot.
Oh, shut up, John. Fuck's sake. Like, he can't even say a thing on his own, right? Nothing is off of his own. He always has to. Anyway, the fact that the thing that's so amazing about watching this is that he is describing the woman in front of him and he's oblivious of that. And it just makes it so clear how much of a failure he is as a psychoanalyst, because he can't even see what's right in front of his face. It's wild.
He's someone I really respect, D.W. Winnicott. And he's a pioneer in our field. He's written some brilliant articles. But one of the articles he wrote was in 1960. He wrote a paper called Ego Distortion in Terms of True and False Self. The interesting thing about this article is that Winnicott was really one of the first psychoanalysts to talk about, after Freud, to talk about this idea of the true and the false self.
Mm-hmm.
And while
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Mary. He and his wife both are name droppers, and he's a name dropper of like authors and philosophers and famous thinkers, and she's a name dropper of victims and, you know, anybody in the true crime arena that she can latch herself onto.
psychologists now, I think we see the self as much more complex than this binary choice between whether you're a true or false self. It's much more complex than that. There's not an all true self or an all false self. But the basic distinction, I think, is important. It still holds up. And the basic distinction is that you can create a false self with a child by essentially placing the caregiver's demands on the child and not allowing that child to be who they could be. In other words, we've talked about this. There's something called mirroring. And the idea of mirroring is that part of the parent's job, if you want to raise a healthy child, is to mirror or reflect back to that child emotions, thoughts, ideas, opinions, right? It's to
Shut up, John. We all know about mirroring. Indy Cindy says it's because of the mythomania. It affects a psychologist's ability to assess a patient properly because they can't, because their brain is broke. It don't work right. Yeah. Well, I mean, he can't. I don't think he can assess anybody properly, honestly, because he's just he just is so inauthentic. I don't know how he could ever make an actual connection with anybody.
It's to have an interaction with that child that's not solely based upon your own needs and your own desires and your own perceptions of the world. It's, in other words, the parent's job isn't necessarily to indoctrinate that child.
Right.
And it's not to dismiss that child.
One thing that I have learned.
Shut up, Lauren. Listen to your stupid ass. One thing Lauren has learned is that she can fake her way into ad revenue.
Dad, I'm feeling really sad. The way I might mirror something back to that child is, I hear what you're saying, that you feel really sad. Tell me what's going on.
Oh, it's
In other
like
words,
ChatGPT.
It's like ChatGPT. Yeah, ChatGPT is probably more empathic than a lot of people, but these days.
Very validating.
But
that. Okay.
But so yeah, I mean, ChatGPT.
Sorry, somebody was asking for the levity. I think I may have spotted the levity. This is the look at John's face. Oh, he's very jocund. Here we go. The levity.
GPT actually does therapy with a lot of people these days, by the way. So
maybe though, because they didn't learn mirroring. So keep
they
going.
didn't, right.
Right.
I don't know that ChatGPT is going to be the best at mirroring, but this idea of mirroring comes into play because in this interaction between parent and child, the question is, does the parent remain open enough to the child's wishes, emotions, feelings, behaviors, right? Their view of the world. Is the parent acknowledging all of that in a way that the child can then become more spontaneous and become aware of their emotions, right?
Okay, so are people, like, not you guys, I mean, are people interested in this? Like, is he saying things that people are like, wow, that's so interesting? Because to me, it all seems really obvious. None of it seems very interesting. It seems like he's trying to convince Lauren rather than making a presentation to an audience. He seems angry. She seems like an empty vessel. And I don't really understand, like, how they have any followers at all. Never mind 360,000. Like, I mean, these people are not funny. They're not interesting. They're not charismatic. They don't have good information. There's nothing new here. There's no particular insight. This is the most basic analysis of false self, true self that you could possibly, or of the mirror stage, or of, like, I mean, who doesn't fucking know that you need to smile at your kid when they smile at you? And that if you are constantly mean to them and shut them down, that they're going to develop weirdly. Come on, give us something.
That's how you develop what's called a true self, is you're letting that child not only you're open to that child's complete experiences of the world, but you're acknowledging them and you're letting the child figure that out for themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're not mirroring back to that child those elements of the child's upbringing, then and you're mirroring back, say, for example,
it really, like, I find it so off-putting the way that he is essentially yelling at her throughout, and that she's looking at him like she would rather be anywhere else. I don't understand why they don't just make a decision. Like, John does not like to be directly on camera with the camera on him. Let's find a way to make up a setup where he can be comfortable. We can sit across from each other. We could set up a whole different thing. This insistence on sitting next to each other it just makes them unwatchable to my mind, among other things.
Say I'm trying to indoctrinate that child. So let's say,
when you say indoctrinate, you mean
I'm trying to force my opinions, beliefs,
views, and
let's use the example of sadness.
Let's just pretend that when he says indoctrinate, he means indoctrinate, Lauren. How about that? Maybe get a dictionary and keep it handy.
Child comes up to me and says, Dad, I'm feeling very sad. And let's say I'm a father that's not comfortable with sadness in myself.
Yeah.
So maybe in that circumstance, my response to the child is, man up. I don't want to hear anything about sadness. You need to be tough.
Yeah.
That would be an example
Why is she smart?
Of a situation where a parent might start creating a false self in that child. Because the child wants to talk about their sadness. They want to experience it. And we know that sadness is a big part of the human experience.
It's real, man. Yeah.
So if I'm responding to that child and saying, I don't want to hear about your sadness, be tough.
Okay. Again, right? It's the verbosity of it all too. Like, I mean, I feel like I could have described what he's saying in about 2 sentences and we could have moved on to the next thing. Like, does everybody get what he's saying, or do you need him to explain it in another way again? Or maybe in the same way again? Oh my God, they are awful. I mean, there's not even, in some ways, there's not even anything actual to respond to because he's not fucking saying anything.
Man up, get over it. Then what I'm doing is I'm starting to negate a very important part of that child's experience. And not only am I not allowing that child to experience sadness, but now I'm setting the stage for that child not to grieve. So let's say let's say in that family, the family dog passes away within a few days of me saying that to the child. That child is not going to come to me and say, Dad, I'm feeling sad.
Yeah.
The dog will pass away. And even though the dog's beloved in this family, I've set the stage for a situation where that child will not be comfortable expressing sadness anymore.
Okay.
And the child will think, I need to be a man and be tough for Dad and not express my sadness, even though the child's feeling sad. So
there is a story, I'll just say.
I often get the impression that Lauren is embarrassed by him and feels embarrassed for him during their lives or their videos.
Say this really quickly. When our son went to a dentist appointment when he was about 4, he said, he said, "I'm scared." And the dentist said, "Don't be scared." Very sweet thing for a dentist to say. Don't be scared. But our son looked right at him and said, "It's okay to be scared." So clearly, I remember that was a really proud parenting moment, and it really threw the dentist off. He's like, "Ah,
That wasn't actually a parenting moment, Lauren. That's a proud parent moment. Just saying. I like to pick Lauren apart because she's irritating. Look at that face on her.
oh,
It's so
okay."
weird.
He's like, "Who are your parents?" But he's like, are your parents actually marrying stuff back to you?" That's unthinkable.
Dr. Dakota pointed this out, and I'm not sure if I'm noticing because he pointed it out or because how could you not notice? But the salient point in all of this for John is, wow, that dentist must have thought that we were pretty great parents. Right? Mindy Caldwell, nice to see you, says he talks about his depression as a child in his Wild Things blog, and there's little to no mention of his relationship with his father. Yeah, the father is like the figure in the background that is the reason why he's not allowed to talk about or process the trauma of being run over by a semi and engulfed in drops of diesel. But yeah, it doesn't seem like he had much of a relationship with his father or his mother, come to that. And those things fuck a person up. Not sure if you know.
It was really funny.
So we get this idea of the true and the false self from Winnicott, and it's, if you want to understand, this is how I always like to start a lot of our shows. If you want to understand Taylor Parker, you need to understand this concept of the true and the false self, specifically the false self. Because
it's not that hard of a concept to understand. You've already explained it. Can we move on? I'm going to guess no.
There's a progression. So it starts with marrying. It starts with this process of, right, you're trying to raise a child. You're trying to raise hopefully a healthy child that has the capacity, maybe, to experience emotions, to experience behaviors, right, that are going to be acceptable or a part of that child's upbringing and their sense of self. And so this story, this Taylor Parker story,
was it very traumatizing, that story, Hot Ham Radio? The John Bio story? Were you traumatized by it? It was a pretty traumatizing story.
Is about a false self that largely becomes dependent upon performance. So you have this progression. So you have a child.
One of the things that I sort of get back to all the time with these two and their whole, the hidden true crime, the hidden motives and everything, is that like, you know, barring a couple of outliers, most of these people who commit these horrific crimes have really similar profiles, right? They have personality disorders, they have false selves, they're not able to take criticism, they're extremely thin-skinned, they're extremely impulsive, they are grandiose. Like, at a certain point, we're just having the same conversation over and over and over again. It feels like to me, right? Dr. Calamity Jan, nice to see you. Feels like it's been a while. Well, I can put it on 1.5. Let's do it, Calamity Jan. Let's do it. I got no problem with that. Let's speed things up. Can't stand these guys. Well, we'll try it. How about we try 1.4? I think 1.5 is a little bit too fast, but yes, I don't mind speeding it up. But yeah, I just feel like every one of their shows is the same. I don't know how it's interesting to people.
Child with let's call them authentic needs, which sadness would be an authentic need. So you have a child that's having these experiences of the world, and then the parent, part of the parent's job is to interact with the child in a healthy way, to acknowledge those needs. But if you don't acknowledge those needs, so sometimes the word therapists will use, clinicians will use, is attunement. Are you attuned to the child? It's not just mirroring, it's also being in touch. You're finding some degree of emotional attunement with the child. And if you are, then the child feels validated, the child feels accepted. And if you're not, so think about this, right? If you're not attuned.
I think that's a good point. Kelly TX says they talk slow because they don't think people understand them well. I think that's, you know, Megan has that same quality, right? Where she acts like nobody is as smart as her and that nobody can understand. I think a lot of people just don't understand how serious stalking is. And she's talking to a community of true crime fans, right? It's, yeah, I think you're right. It's partly why it's so off-putting, I think.
Into that child's needs, then you're negating that experience. And what happens over time, if you do that enough, is you start creating a sense of shame in the child.
Yeah.
And that's where shame comes into, this is where shame starts becoming associated with the false self. Because if you negate that child's experience long enough, and maybe not even long, it could just be one time. If I'm very punitive, if my child comes to me and says, Dad, I'm feeling sad, and I say,
Oh God, I mean, you've already said all this, John. It's so boring. Like, I literally think that paper that I just read the abstract for is more informative. I gave you more information about what's going on and what happened in that case from reading that little abstract than the famous forensic psychologist is giving us here. Like, I don't know. Maybe it just really is the thing that, like, yeah, we know these people are disordered fuck ups. Like, I'm here for the consequences. I know what's wrong with them.
shut up. I don't want to hear about it. Man up and be tough. It's probably going to only take one time for me to do that, for that child to shut down completely. So the next time that child feels sadness, not only will that child not come to me, but let's go back to the example of losing the dog. Let's say the dog passes away. The child feels sad because naturally that's a natural response to losing a beloved dog in the family. So now when the child experiences that sadness, the natural response is going to be something like shame. Something like, I'm feeling sad. Dad doesn't like that. Something must be wrong with me.
Okay.
I need to be a man. So this is where shame comes into the equation. I'm oversimplifying this because this is a process that's going to happen over time. And it's probably not going to happen. It could, if there's a traumatic experience, it could happen from one instance. But for the most part,
That's actually a really good insight, I think. Chocolate Chip 12 says it's like in football where you want to monopolize possession of the ball. John thinks that when he's talking, he's controlling the clock and therefore winning. I suspect that that's actually true, and that I think that maybe there's a certain, like, when he's talking, he's not anxious in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, as long as he's talking, he can keep the fear that he's going to be found out as a fraud at bay. I mean, you know, these are just my opinions, but yeah, I think that's a solid insight, Chocolate Chip 12. You guys are also smart.
this is an experience that's going to occur over time. So you have this. So if we're thinking about this process, you have this process of the child has a need, an authentic need. There's a misattunement to the child's needs. There's shame that starts developing. The child feels defective. And so what happens is the child will naturally start adapting. The child will start developing defenses to that. The child will have to defend against those feelings because the child's experiences are being negated and dismissed.
Okay. And so are you?
G Mama says, do y'all see the pictures of Walwyn and Muchato from today? I did not see them, but I did hear about them. I think it was over on Andy Copes' stream. They were talking about what a piece of shit Lauren is, as she's over here trying to present herself as this deeply empathic and principled true crime princess who is so attuned to the victims. And she's meanwhile out there showing her whole ass with the racist and very problematic Jess Machado. So again, Lauren goes where the attention is. So yes, Andy was great. I very much enjoyed that. I listened to most of it.
You're saying this is what happened to Taylor Parker.
This is the process, I think, that yes, that would apply to Taylor Parker, right? So the problem with Taylor Parker is we don't know a lot about her childhood.
That was an interesting actually part of the documentary because they brought in people to share about her childhood, including her friends, but we only got kind of like her teenage years. And then the mother shows up, as I'm sure they asked her mother, but she clearly declined. Her mother kind of appears, she doesn't appear in the documentary, but she becomes a figure when somebody finally talks to the mother and says, Taylor isn't who she says she is, but we don't know really anything about her. I'm sure they asked her to.
Again, I just don't agree with him that you needed to know all about her childhood in order to be able to figure out what's going on. Like, it seems pretty fucking obvious what's going on. And she's like a lot of all these people, right? Who just cannot, they are all image and they've got nothing in, right? It's all storefront. There's nothing in the store. And they invest every single thing in the storefront. And then when that falls, the threat of exposure is so it is genuinely very threatening to them in terms of like life threatening, because they cannot function without an intact image of themselves as a good person, right? And they need that from people outside themselves. They can't get it for themselves. They can't generate that self-worth. They need it from the outside. So when people see through their image, they fall to pieces. And it is so desperate, right? It is so life-threatening to them that they are willing to do shit like commit a murder so that they can come back with a baby, right? And I don't think that we need to know that much about this woman's childhood to understand the psychology of that.
Interview, but no one in Taylor Parker's family was in this documentary.
Yeah, right. We just, there's a real...
It left a lot of mystery, but also it answered a little bit too, right? When you don't have any family or any history to speak of, it kind of says something. It
says a lot.
What does it say? Do tell. Do tell us, Lauren. I have been estranged from my own family for 30 years. What does it say about me? Go ahead, tell me about myself.
But it does mean that her childhood is a bit of an enigma. We can work backwards. I'm going to be talking about some things from her childhood that are going to give us some clues. But a lot of times the cases we cover, we have a lot more clues. We'll have instances of trauma from childhood. We'll have instances.
I don't really understand. Like, this is what I'm sort of getting at here. Is like, what do we want the clues for? For what? Like, seriously, are you people interested in all the clues of what happened in her entire childhood so that it would lead to this? Or are you interested in seeing this woman get her comeuppance for what she did, right? I don't feel personally like, oh, there's some big loss because we don't know a lot about her childhood. I think that, like, I don't think it's that important. And I think that if people realize that it's not that important, then these guys don't have a channel anymore, right? Like, he's not offering us any particular insight that is going to give us any better. Like, if he knew more about particular incidents of abuse in her childhood, that would give us a better understanding of her. I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Of abuse.
I can see why people like him need to exist in order to diagnose these people so that they can go into court and say, look, this is the situation with this woman and why it's very dangerous to ever consider letting her out again and why she needs to be, either in prison forever or whatever. But I just don't see that this is providing that much of a service. Even if he was good at it, I don't see that it's worth, night after night after night after night after night on YouTube.
We don't have that here necessarily.
Well, they talked about low self-esteem. They did talk about her weight, and that she had surgery, weight loss surgery, and lost a lot of weight and sort of enjoyed the attention once she was able to feel, I think, prettier and present herself.
Again, like, I mean, do we need Lauren to figure that out for us? It says in a therapy session with Dr. John, would I get the chance to talk, or would it be just him? Yeah, just him, probably. He would tell you all about his other clients and how amazingly he fixed them, except for the guy that, took a running.
So I imagine and speculate that there was some low self-esteem. It makes me wonder if people were kind to her growing up.
We'll be talking about that in a minute. Okay. I think that's part of this equation.
I'm jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead. You're right.
I do that.
It's okay.
Well, I jump around. Okay, keep going.
So we have this process. So I'm at the point now where, right, you have this misattunement or this misalignment in terms of how the parent is reacting to the child's needs for authenticity. And by the way, when I talk about that, I mean elements of the child's life that might be uncomfortable, not just sadness, but things like shame, fears of abandonment.
Mary O'Neill says there's a podcast called Killer Psyche, and she does a much better job of delving into murderers' backgrounds to explain why they did what they did. Yeah, there's some great podcasts out there for sure. There's another woman I follow by the name of, I think her name is Zoe. Her channel's called Live Abuse Free. And she was, unfortunately, sadly for her, she was struck with long COVID, so she's not able to make videos as often as she did. But she talks a lot about these types of personality disorders, NPD, and all the, in an effort to kind of, warn people and give them, give them advice on how to avoid getting tangled up with these people who, as we know, can be very, at least very superficially charming, right? And with the love bombing and all that, it's very easy to get tangled up with them if you're not aware that those types of behaviors are very manipulative, right? That if you are dating someone who is wanting to get married very quickly or wanting to move in very quickly, wanting to secure the relationship very quickly, things like that, that can feel like a whirlwind romance, right? We've been taught to think that the heart open romances and the whirlwind romance and being swept off your feet and it's so romantic and all that, right? And often it's a manipulation. And I think it's really important that that information gets out there. I just don't think that what John is doing provides any of that for anybody, right? I just don't get it. I think he is trying to present himself as some kind of a genius that he very much isn't. Lauren is an empty vessel, with a hole in it. And they have literally nothing to offer.
Abandonment, feelings of emptiness, these deeper existential things that all children feel, but often feel difficult to express. Feeling ordinary, feeling helpless, feeling dependent, feeling envious, feeling jealousy. These are all part of this equation. Feeling anger, feeling rage, fears of being unlovable. These are all normal parts of the human condition.
It's good.
That in a perfect world, children are allowed to express and the parent is capable of acknowledging. But when the parent doesn't, then you have this situation where the child oftentimes feels defective or they feel.
Right? You end up with somebody like John. Like, he's describing his own childhood too, right? His parents did not respond to him and did not respond to his needs. His whole bio is about experiencing an insanely traumatic event and his mother not even telling his father about it. So, it's very weird that he's talking about the kind of childhood that he had and not connecting that he's describing himself to his viewers.
They feel shame, they feel fear perhaps at experiencing any of those elements I talked about. Vulnerability would be another big one. If a child feels vulnerable, is the parent able to acknowledge that? So when a parent can't acknowledge that, you get a child has to adapt to be able to cope with those emotions. Mm-hmm. So that's where defense mechanisms come into play. And what happens is that,
which is what personality disorders are, right? NPD is a defense structure. And that's exactly, Lauren has many, many narcissistic traits. I mean, obviously I can't diagnose her as having the disorder because I'm not a psychologist, but you can certainly count up the traits and she's got plenty of them.
Because the child's not able to start really experiencing what a true self would be like or an authentic self would be like, the child starts experimenting with various ways to feel normal and because these experiences are negated, the child has to cope. The child's trying to find ways to exist in the world, even though this big part of their experience is negated. So there's a lot of ways they could do that. But one of the ways that children test the boundaries of feeling negated is by lying. And so you'll see children test the boundaries of what's possible oftentimes by engaging in deception and lies, and they'll see how far they can go with it.
This is where pathological lying just sort of starts to take root, is what
this is right. This is where
the pathological liars are teaching us about how pathological lying comes about. It's fascinating to watch.
Lying enters the equation in terms of lying really, the psychology behind lying becomes, okay, the simplest way to put this is to say that lying becomes the way to regulate a fragile self.
Lying becomes the way, hold on.
Lying becomes the way to regulate a fragile self. That pretty much describes Megan, no? Megan lies constantly.
So lying becomes
a defensive maneuver in order to protect a fragile self, a false self that is not able to acknowledge these experiences of vulnerability and the things I just talked about.
Lying becomes a way to protect your fragile self, the fragile self.
Essentially, it becomes a defense against the fragile.
Lauren likes that. She's going to repeat that. She liked that. Remember, she liked that phrase whisper campaign too. When she likes a thing, she uses it. Look at that face. What does that expression say? There are many times actually when I can't quite read Lauren's expression because what is that expression? Is it literally just look at me? Because it's very cold, right? Like there's no way to connect with that face. There's no way in there. And she does that a lot, right? She looks straight at the camera with that weird fucking expression.
Fragility of the self, vulnerability, shame,
All of the above.
all of the above.
A way
So-
to protect against. Okay.
So it becomes a way.
A fragile self.
It becomes a way to transform. Basically, it becomes a way to transform certain unbearable emotions or experiences
Agree.
into a reality that's more survivable, that they're able to cope with better. So if we go back,
Lauren is better able to cope with the reality that her, with a reality wherein she has a brilliant psychologist husband and she's an investigative journalist and they are a power couple, right? She is able to cope with that much better than with the reality that she's an empty-headed bimbo who is incapable of connecting with human beings in any meaningful way.
back to my simple example about the dog passing away and the child feels sad and then the child knows they can't express that. They're experiencing grief. They can't express it. It's not being acknowledged. The child feels defective, or the child experiences some shame around that. The child may have to, in order to cope with that situation, the child may start fabricating and creating stories to make them feel better.
Okay, did he already say this like 7 times, or am I imagining that? He's now repeating himself again. Thanks, G Mama. Yeah, please hit the like button if you haven't yet, you guys. Thank you for reminding me. I always forget.
Such as, well, the dog, for example, well, I didn't really love the dog anyway because the dog bit me all the time. And let's just say that's false. Let's say the dog was wonderful and the child loved the dog.
Right.
The child is creating this alternative reality,
Interesting.
lying about it, creating this alternative reality in order to regulate their emotions and their shame and their fragility.
Interesting.
And so what happens is the child, and
I'm
this,
having a lot of aha moments.
Oh my God, it's not that interesting, Lauren. It's fucking deadly boring. Like, oh my God. The dog scenario has nothing to do with why Taylor Barker did such an extreme thing. Yeah, I mean, none of this has, obviously Taylor Parker had a problem, clearly, right? Yes, in the Valley of the Kings says, are we going to eventually triangulate from the dog to the child to Brad Pitt or what? Yeah, can we fucking get there? Jesus fucking Christ. I'm with you, Valley of the Kings. Wish I was in the Valley of the Kings instead of here listening to this shit.
Moments here.
this goes back to what the prosecutor said about Taylor Parker being a liar, a con artist, an actress, and a fraud. Let's isolate the actress part. So what happens when you have these steps and the child starts lying is it becomes a child in some way starts acting because they know their real experience should be sadness.
Yeah.
But now they're creating this other narrative that negates sadness, and it presents this fiction they're creating about the dog being cruel so that they can cope with their sadness. It's false. But what's important about it,
I don't understand why he's shouting at her, though. Okay, yes. I don't know. I feel like I could maybe eventually come to some final conclusion about these two, that there's no point in watching them. But the fact that they continue to pull their victim exploitation maneuvers and that they've now got Sam Bateman's victims in their clutches just makes me feel like I can't leave them alone.
is it becomes performative. And I think one of the key takeaways from looking at this particular situation is that one thing I can say definitively about Taylor Parker is that almost everything she's doing is a performance.
Yeah. Everything.
She's performing illness. She's performing medical conditions. She's performing wealth.
How about, the performing of the wealth. How about,
She's performing pregnancy. She's performing victimhood. Let me keep going.
well, I just performing her maternity pictures.
How about if you guys stop fucking yelling over top of each other? How about that? Right? How about one of you have enough sense to shut up and let the other person talk?
Where she writes some photographer and says, what I really want is laying with my belly up in the air on a horse. I'm like, how about just like, if you're like faking a pregnancy, like it's just bold enough to be like, hey, I want, maybe some maternity pictures. Like even that's mind blowing. I mean, faking your pregnancy.
This bitch over here is talking about somebody else having the balls of a burglar. Are you fucking kidding me? This woman who has spent the last year pretending that she had a stalker to get out of being revealed for the shitty person that she is. The thing that's really, really, really upsetting about Lauren is that because of her disorder, she believes her shit. that doesn't mean she's not terribly calculating and all the rest of it, but she really believes that she's the victim.
Is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Faking your pregnancy so far that you're like, let's go get maternity pictures is mind-blowing. Going so far as to doing that and saying like, I just want, talk about performative. I want my belly in the air on a horse. And this is, I mean, that's when you're like, okay, you know, wow.
Yeah, great fucking insight, Lauren. Really amazing. So glad Lauren was there to share that with us.
Messaging data rates may apply. See terms for details.
So a big part of this story, maybe one of the central parts of this story, is not only this.
Shut up, John. Mom interrupted, has something to say. John interrupted? I may have missed it, but just in case I didn't, did you see their most recent Patreon where Lauren and Grayson are drunk and crying? I did a live about it the other night, in fact. So yes, I have seen it. Pretty impressive stuff, Mom interrupted. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I very much appreciate your support. Yeah, pretty amazing, eh? They just wanted Lauren feels extremely sad about the 14-year-old girl she was who wrote a poem about kindness. She's very sad. You don't have to go watch now. You could stay and hang out with us. I mean, kind of like having you here.
The notion of the self, the idea of the false self is really critical here, but also this idea of performing. So again, if you have the child that's not able to experience sadness and starts creating these stories about the dog that are false just so they feel better.
The dog bit me.
The dog bit me.
I don't like the dog.
The child's performing. The child's creating this.
I mean, so as far as I understand it, random old lady, she absolutely does believe she's the victim, yes. But that doesn't mean that she's not aware when she's manipulating or when she's lying. But the defense structure that is narcissistic personality disorder is designed to protect her from the knowledge of who she is, right? Because at whatever time in her very young childhood that, you know, the abuse happened that caused this disorder, she was too young to know that that was happening. These things happen very, very young, right? So this is all she knows. That doesn't mean that she doesn't know that she's lying, but the defense structure is there to protect her from the knowledge that she is, you know, the person that her parents said she was, or whoever it was, right? The idea that, like he's saying, if you say to a kid that, you know, man up or whatever, they have to create this false self because they're ashamed of that, right? And that's who she sees herself, is that ashamed little child. That is the real Lauren. And she cannot face that, right? It is literally life-threatening for her to face that.
Elaborate fantasy in this fiction in order to feel better about the dog. So if a friend says, let's say a friend says to that child, hey, I feel so bad your dog died. The child will say, oh, don't feel bad. The dog used to bite me all the time. I hate that dog. That's a really simple version of what's going on with Taylor Parker.
To cover fragility of self, shame, vulnerability.
So you get
emotions.
Right. It's very wild to watch this. This is what I was saying about Doc and Dakota was like, I don't know if there's any point in even covering this. It's just so obviously projection from start to finish, right? What can you say about this other than like, how do these people not see themselves? Well, they don't, because they have these extremely powerful defense mechanisms in place to protect them from seeing who they are.
These lies,
sadness.
Right? You get these lies and these fictions and these fantasies that are all performative. And here's what happens:
I'm listening.
the more you do this, and this is where I'm gonna invoke the name of our podcast. This is where I'm gonna say hidden. I get to say I never.
Who says? Indy says, for fuck's sake, we're still talking about the goddamn dog. Remember how long we talked about Gabriel the Herter? Right? I mean, we've barely scratched the surface here.
Never get to say hidden.
It's our name for a reason.
It's our name for a reason.
Hidden.
This is where the true self, in terms of Winnicott's definition, the true self that needs to feel vulnerable and sad and all those normal experiences I talked about. This is where the true self becomes hidden.
Right? Because Lauren can't handle those feelings. She cannot handle those feelings of vulnerability. And that's what John is always saying. You guys can't handle my vulnerability. But that's literally projection. Lauren cannot handle vulnerability. And that's why she has to lie and pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot and constantly reposition herself as the victim, because she cannot cope with who she really is.
The child starts hiding the true self, and the true self either becomes lost
That's the
or
hurt.
buried, negated, or erased. And in the case of Taylor Parker, I don't think there's a true self anywhere in sight. I don't think there's no true.
Oh yeah, I forgot we were even talking about Taylor Parker. Taylor who? What? I thought this was all about John and Lauren. Certainly seems to be all about John and Lauren.
True self.
Zero true self.
There's no true self.
I think that's what's most fascinating, because isn't there like some true self in some people? Like I'm like just like a little bit like in there. You're like absolutely nothing. Everything is a lie.
Bringing the levity to the heavity. That's what they do.
Lie.
You mean like
everything? Everything's a performance. Everything's a lie.
And so the true self becomes buried. I'm going to use the term hidden because that's my favorite word. So
well, yeah,
the true self is hidden. It's hiding. It's in some cases, I think with her, it becomes erased. And if the true self becomes negated and erased, then that person becomes utterly dependent upon this fiction, this false self. And that's what you have here.
Move it along.
And not only do you have that, but there's another step here that's equally important. And that is because the person knows that they're operating from this false self, they're
just me says he ruined Brad for me. Well, I mean, Brad beating up his wife and children ruined Brad for me personally, but John didn't help, certainly.
Terrified of being exposed.
Yeah.
They're terrified of their lives becoming exposed, because that would mean that the very basis of their identity, which they don't know anyway, but whatever their self is, would become even more fragmented.
Right. I feel like it would be good to clip that and put it in a little short with our whole everything is going down the toilet in a minute, because that's exactly it, right? They're afraid of being exposed. They've just described themselves again.
It would become even more fragmented than it is. I don't know if that's possible with Taylor Parker, by the way, but
I'm thinking about a lot of crimes and a lot of criminals and Taylor Parker, but this is fascinating.
And so
actually not, Lauren, it's actually boring as fuck. And you and he are the reason for that. Because actually, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with this case. And you guys have so far made it like watching paint dry while poking pins in my eyes.
You have this absolute fear of feeling shame. You have this absolute fear of being exposed as a fraud, being exposed as a con artist, being exposed as a liar. One thing she says near the end of this documentary, and again,
I mean, Lauren's been living in that fear. That's the whole fear. That was her whole fear, was being exposed. She never had any fear that Christina was coming to get her, that people were going to come and attack her, right? Not at all. She was afraid people were going to expose her.
Spoiler alert here, we're going to talk about this documentary. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But
we are talking about this documentary.
But Wade,
fiance Wade, Taylor Parker's fiance Wade,
the supposed father of the prosthetic belly.
This poor schmuck. I don't know how many of you have seen the actual the Netflix special, but man, this dude just got railroaded, and he didn't have the sense he was born with. And even though he had been warned, he was warned. People knew. They lived in a very small community, and people knew that she had had a hysterectomy and there was no way she could be pregnant. And he was told multiple times, and he still believed her, right? That's why we're here, to my mind, right? Not just us here today, but why all the creators that are on these guys are here day after day after day, is because even when you're faced with the truth, even when people told him the truth about her, and he claims at the end of the thing, he claims that he never even told her that he loved her. So he had huge reservations. He was told by multiple people, and he still could not see what she was capable of, right? And I mean, that's the way it is with these people. Most of us can't see that. Most of us have no idea what they're capable of and how many of them there are. You know, just because Lauren hasn't done something really terrible. I mean, I'm not saying what she did to Christina wasn't terrible, but you know what I'm saying, right? Doesn't mean that she's not capable of it. And I think it's important for people to remember that. Far be it from me to be a moralizing melatonin Megan, but like, these people are dangerous, and they are most dangerous when they're about to be exposed.
Yeah.
He confronts her. This is going to be an important part of the story later. He confronts her a couple of days or a day before the crime, day before the murder. And she says something, she basically says something to him like, I'm not going to be called a liar. Right? Like, she knows,
Projection.
she knows she's a liar.
Projection.
Well, no, that's a big debate.
This is the thing, right? Same with, this is Lauren through and through. It's insane to watch.
By the way, does she know she's a liar? I mean, we'll get into that.
She
but
has no sense of self. I don't know if she knows what
does
she
she
is.
know she's a liar?
I
Yeah.
don't know. It's actually a question for me. Does Lori Vallow know she's a
Right.
liar?
It's the same dynamic. I think that there's distinctions there in the sense.
Does Lauren know she's a liar? I mean, Lauren knows when she's telling a straight up lie. I don't have any doubt about that. None whatsoever. Lori, I don't think you can really talk about Lori that easily because Lori was diagnosed with religious delusions, right? That's an actual diagnosis. So I don't think you can throw her into the same basket as Lauren necessarily. They certainly have traits in common, but
Sense that
I don't think that Lauren is delusional. I think she's delusional in that she imagined that she's some important and special person, but I think that she knows very well that she's not.
Vallow was diagnosed as having delusional disorder, whereas Taylor Parker, at least according to the forensic people in the case, did not diagnose her with delusional disorder. So that's a big distinction. But the point is,
Doing a little shout out to Live Abuse Free here from Chinplant 67, who is behind. But yeah, she's great. She's done some great stuff. She did a lot of work on Chris Watts and on Chris Watts's mom. If you guys have not seen Live Abuse Free on Chris Watts's mom, it's a real treat to watch. She's very, very good at dismantling these people for you. She's actually like certified, right? She's not somebody like me who's just been dealing with them all her life. She's actually got qualifications.
that all of this gets set in motion, and then all of it becomes a vicious cycle. All of it, you go through the cycle over and over again, because the fear of being exposed then leads to more shame, which leads to more feeling defective, which leads to more defensive maneuvers, which leads to more lies, which, it becomes.
This is exactly what's happening with them, right? They were very, very close to being exposed to the point that they were going to lose their, not only what they have now, but what they were planning for the future and everything. And in order to protect that, more lies. That was the 9-hour live, right? He's literally describing them and the 4-hour response and all that. This is them.
It becomes an unending cycle. It's really hard to break.
And they can't stop it.
The only way you can stop it, yeah, there is a way to stop it. You know how you stop it?
Is it going to be tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth? Because I think that's going to be it. And I would definitely advise these two to do that. Look at them. They're fucking looking right at each other. And they both know who each other is. What a pair.
You tell the truth.
They can't do that though.
I know, but
if you don't have a sense of self.
I know.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth, Lauren. If you don't have a sense of self, it's kind of hard, I guess, eh? Lauren understands that it's hard when you have no sense of self. Look at her fucking shaking her head back there like she's something.
Oh, so this is this is the point where I want to interject my main literary metaphor.
Okay, here we go.
The way to stop it is to become Pinocchio. This is, and when I say Pinocchio, I'm not talking about the Disney version.
You see that fucking face? I don't think he has been as proud of an analogy as he has since Brad Pitt days.
Taylor Parker was her stomach that kept growing, not her nose. Her fake
Exactly,
stomach.
but it's the same dynamic.
Idea.
It's the same idea.
And it's got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Carlo Collodi in 1881, he writes the story of Pinocchio. And by the way, the original story of Pinocchio is way more interesting and darker than the Disney version. So I'm referring to the 1881 version.
Which he was going to read before the thing, but he didn't have time. So not sure why he's telling us about it.
The story of Pinocchio is, in essence, we're not going to talk about Pinocchio in too much depth there, but the story of Pinocchio is essentially a story about
It's funny, right? Because I have literally said the exact thing about Lauren, the exact fucking thing right from the very beginning, that this could all end if she just told the truth, apologized, explained that she behaved in those ways because she has, trouble feeling like she matters and that she, etc. And she could move on, and she could not only move on, but she could probably be embraced, right? But instead, no, I mean, she's not capable of that. It's never going to happen. But yes, I mean, I am certainly not the only one who said it about them. So it's just interesting to hear them saying it. They're very, seems like they understand very well what the right thing is to do. So that's interesting.
growing up. So Pinocchio is a wooden doll created by his father.
Somebody was saying earlier what it would be like to have gone on a date with them, and I think this is what it was like. I think this is exactly what their first date was like.
Geppetto, if you can say, I don't know if you don't, he becomes a boy eventually. Right. So he's wood. So I guess you don't really have a father if you're wood.
No,
but
that's his father. Yeah, the puppet maker becomes his father.
Puppet maker is his father.
He wanted a little boy.
And the way,
see what I mean? Like, I mean, this is supposed to be, this is what Netflix left out of Maternal Instinct. Taylor Parker, Unmasked by Criminal Psychologist, and we are 41 minutes into it, and he basically hasn't even talked about Taylor except for like once or twice. What is the symbolic meaning of the wood, John? I guess that Pinocchio, the wooden Pinocchio, is the false self.
The way Pinocchio transforms is essentially by growing up and taking responsibility for his actions. And so he's kind of this...
His nose gets longer and longer and longer.
So the nose becomes a physical manifestation of his line. It grows long.
Good contribution. Lauren contributed. His nose gets bigger.
Every time he lies.
A whale appears somewhere.
Yes.
Isn't there like a whale? It's like,
yeah, but that's...
Okay, we're skipping the whale? Yeah, that's all I remember.
There's also a sea monster. Okay. There's like toys that come to life. It's a great story. I was actually going to reread it for this episode, but
we don't have time.
I didn't have time. Yeah. So, but trust me that the metaphor of Pinocchio is applicable.
The nose grows.
Again, like, Pinocchio is a children's story, and by the time we have reached kindergarten, most of us have heard that story and understood the import of that story. So I'm not really sure why he needed to do anything other than mention Pinocchio, and that we would all go, ah, yes, Pinocchio, the child who lied. And then when he stopped lying, he became a real boy. Ah, I get it. Like, that's it. That's all we need. But no.
Each lie.
But the nose becomes a metaphor for the self that's becoming more deformed. In other words, one of the things about Pinocchio is that lying harms the self.
Yeah.
Lying, because you're digging this false, because you're amplifying this false self, in a way, you're really deforming yourself. You're really distorting any version of the true self that might be left. You're starting to negate it, and you're really starting to bury that and deny it. And the further you get away from that, the harder it's going to be to get it back. So with Pinocchio, right, the more Pinocchio tries to control his environment, and the more he tries to control appearances, the more visibly out of control he becomes. The worse it gets. The worse it gets. And so you have a similar dynamic.
It's also a snowball effect.
Did you catch that? That's exactly what happened with Lauren too, right? The more she tried to control things, the worse it got, right? The more she tried to get the cops to do her bidding, the more she did all that shit, the worse it got. Until she ended up in court with a judge saying, seems like you're trying to use the court system to shut somebody down from saying things you don't like. And then when that happened, she had to then carry on again, right? With the 9-hour live. So again, these two are literally describing their own crimes and the ways that they got out of them.
You have a similar dynamic with Taylor Parker in the sense that she's creating these lies about her wealth, about her physical or medical issues. She has MS, she has brain cancer. Like, it just goes on and on. I don't even know if we have time.
So many lies. The money, the finances. But going as far, this was one moment that was just surprising to me. This is, I think, a question with how much does she know, how much is a lie. She creates this fiction about her wealth and goes out and buys her mother-in-law a car, gives her mother-in-law the car.
Right? Lauren creates this fiction about her experience as a journalist. And she goes out there and pretends to be something that she isn't.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, it's repossessed because no one's paid a dime on it.
Right.
And that's it. Nobody talks about it. But my point is, like, there was almost a part of me that wondered, that was a great example. Did she know that that was going to happen? Did she know that?
Right. But Lauren, I mean, did you know that you were going to get caught from all your machinations? Seems pretty obvious that you would. So, like, I feel like you could answer your own questions here.
3 weeks later, the car would be repossessed? Or did she somehow think that, like, what, or, you know, was she taking pictures of it with a bow for social media knowing it would be repossessed? Or
I think that's an interesting part of the story is if you have a pathological liar and you know they're lying all the time, then why do you keep buying their lies?
well, I mean,
Like there's a gullibility.
well, yeah, that was part of
Right? Why do the gems keep buying these guys' lies? It's a good question.
it. You know,
Yeah.
Wade wanted to think the best of her. People were starting to figure it out. Everyone wanted to think the best.
Wade, Wade, we'll get to some things Wade said later. I don't want to kind of,
Mhm.
I don't want to say what he's, I don't want to spoil too much with Wade because there's some things he said that are going to be absolutely critical to this analysis, but Wade wants to believe her.
He does.
Wade wants to think that, I think a lot
Well, because there's 2 choices in front of you. You either
Yeah, I don't think that Wade wanted to believe her. I think that Wade couldn't conceive of somebody doing what she did. So, again, the brilliant psychologist, to my mind, is off the mark. My understanding, and I watched this just 2 days ago. So the feeling I got off of him was that he was just one of those guys that, for whatever reason, right, she was just able to manage him and manage herself into his life and to kind of separate him from his friends and family in the way that allowed her to have control. And he was also, he worked all day, right? He's a farmer out there working all day. He was like farming hogs, for God's sake. Like, the man worked from dawn till dusk every single day of his life, and he would come home and eat. And it sounds like their relationship was a nightmare right from the get-go. So again, he's characterizing this differently than how I experienced it, which tells me, just basically because I know that I'm pretty perceptive, and I'm not bragging, I just know who I am. It tells me that he's not insightful at all. I'm going to let this run for a minute and let the dog out. Excuse us.
either have a pregnant fiance or it is the absolute worst case scenario and you are living with, you know, a sociopath, or what you feel like is right. I think that's oftentimes how crime sort of happen too, is I feel like it's always hindsight when you have somebody and you think it just can't be that bad, right? The other option is so horrific to think about.
There's a social contract. We all have an implicit social contract, which basically says that human beings should be trustworthy, that human beings operate in good faith, that human beings tell the truth. If we didn't have that social contract, society would collapse instantly. If everybody was lying to everyone about everything, I mean, that's the reason we have the law. That's the reason we have a legal system, is because contracts get broken and they have to be enforced in some judicial way, because human beings aren't always trustworthy. But for the most part, most of society operates with the assumption that people, even if they're lying, the assumption is that people, to some degree, are trustworthy. Otherwise, you can't do business with people.
I know, and when you're looking at someone face to face, and not only that, but when you're living with them and they're carrying your child and you fell in love with them and they're your fiance, yeah, I don't think you're going to go to, she's faking this entire thing. You'd rather stretch to like, no, her mother, you know, is wicked and took her money away, and you know.
Well, this is actually a really important part of the story, which is that Wade becomes one of the central vehicles for her lying apparatus. Wade becomes both the emotional catalyst and the audience for her performance.
Oh, fucking shut up, John. God, that's first of all, to my mind, not true, and also not relevant. Like, for Lauren, right? She's like, so either you believe everything they say, or you believe that you're living with a sociopath and blah, blah, blah. And I just, again, like, I don't think that that's actually true. I think that things can be more nuanced than that. And the fact that Wade was not able to conceive of the fact that she was going to go out and murder someone to steal their baby, I don't think any of us could have predicted that, right? Even the people who knew that she had had a hysterectomy and they knew what a liar she was. And I mean, I'm talking about people from the hospital where she had her hysterectomy. This is a very small community. They had the whole maternity ward on high alert because they knew her due date was coming up, and they knew she couldn't possibly be pregnant. So they were all on high alert because they thought she was going to come and steal a baby from the maternity ward. So even they could not conceive that she was going to go and murder a young pregnant woman to try to steal her baby. So Lauren misses the mark again, and John fails to correct her because I don't think he has any fucking insight into this at all, honestly.
So in other words, and to put it simply, she's using him. She's manipulating him. And she's manipulating his sense of operating in good faith and believing her, and his dependency. I think Wade really, I mean, he doesn't totally trust her, but he really wants this to work to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. The impression I got was that he would be very happy if he just woke up one morning and she wasn't there anymore. So whatever he's saying is not how I experienced that at all. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm right, but I'm often pretty perceptive, and my experience of John is that he's often not. I feel like Wade just sort of it all just happened to him, and he just didn't know how to confront her and say, get out of my life, right? And then once she was pregnant, he had all that. He felt responsible. There was no sense from what I saw that he really wanted it to work out at all. She was the engine that drove all of that.
Absolutely.
And so she's really taking advantage of that. She's really manipulating. I mean, that's what all liars do. They play on people's gullibility. They play on people's vulnerability. They play on people's trustworthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And so clearly she's doing this.
Their humanness.
They don't play on people's trustworthiness, John. They play on people's trustingness. Just saying. You're supposed to be a fucking professional and get it right.
And call it what it is. Just their belief in, being human.
Exactly.
Right, their belief in being human. Dakota went off on this one in quite a way, and he was like, seriously, now we're going to have to stop and think that, like, if they're not human, then they're alien, then Dr. John would have to be teaching us alien psychology. He went quite off on a whole thing. But yes, Lauren and her belief in being human. Lauren believes in kindness and humanism, even though she doesn't know what humanism is. Lauren thinks that humanism is people being nice to each other in their safe spaces.
So that the Wade part, I think, is really important.
Hi, Rachel.
Because there's another part of that too. When I say that Wade's the emotional catalyst, what I mean by that too is that some of Taylor's friends talk.
Right? Molly Colleen says, like Jolene always says, some people just aren't good at this. Face it and do something else. Fucking exactly, right? Well, thank you, Rachel. That's very nice of you to say that. Thank you. Not the humanism. Yes, the humanism. Lauren doesn't know what it is, but yes, it's what she believes in, and she feels very sad for the 13-year-old girl that is herself, who wrote a poem about kindness. She feels very sad. Right? Do something else. I was thinking today. I was watching a little clip. I was watching a short video from reporting live from my sofa. I'm a big fan of Paul. I just think he is just I just like him as a person. He always makes me smile, and he just seems very genuine. And I remember thinking about him that he was he must have been into true crime forever. He just seems to know everything. And he talks about these cases from way back and blah, blah, blah. And then one day I heard him talking about how he got started on YouTube. He and his partner had started out trying to do a van life channel. And they weren't very good at it. And so they pivoted to something else, and that something else was true crime. And then it turned out that he was very good at that, and so that their little career and their channel just took off, and he has done very well for himself, and I just love him, and I'm happy for all his success. And I think that's an excellent point, Molly Colleen. I think these two could, my sister has just come home, and Apples is peeing his pants with excitement about her being here.
Talk a lot about the fact that she's constantly worried about the fact that he's going to leave. She's afraid that he's having affairs. She's just petrified of a.
Oh, shut up. He's just very genuine, is Paul, in my experience. And these two are anything but, right? And I think that that's part of the reason why he does so well, is because he is very genuine. He's funny, he's silly, he's goofy, and he's very much himself, right? He laughs at his own little jokes. Like he's enjoyable to spend time with, right? He's not pretending to something that he's not. And he's compassionate, right? When he talks about these stories and he says that it's so sad and so awful, you get the sense that he really feels those things, right? That it really is upsetting and discombobulating for him. It's amazing how many people have commented on the ugly shirt. It is really fucking bad. This is how he dresses his kid too. It's just ridiculous. You want to, I practically picture the kid in a little boater, you know, those little styrofoam boaters from back in the day.
Afraid of abandonment.
Right.
Something we've talked a lot about when it comes to criminals.
Yeah.
A fear of abandonment. Also is rejection.
Right. Like that's Lauren through and through. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being seen through, all of it.
Absolutely. That's a part of this equation for sure. But let's, in terms of
I shouldn't say just a fear of.
So funny. Chocolate Chip 12 says Paul's reading. I'm not even listening to these guys anymore. Sorry. Says Paul's reading of One Foot in the Grave. I cried myself laughing. He did I was literally thinking of that today. Oh, Janice, you met Paul. Oh my God. I was literally thinking of that today, how he read that book. And it was so god awful. And he made it so funny. Janice Ballet Flat says, I met Paul at CrimeCon. He made a video for LIZ for me to send to her because she loves him. Yeah, he's a doll. I mean, he's everything about him screams genuine. Like John's shirt screams, Mommy, we're late for the Easter egg hunt. Yes. Paul from Reporting Live from My Sofa is his channel. He has two channels, Reporting Live from My Sofa and Reporting Live from My Sofa, the podcast. And one of the podcast one is his live channel. And the other one is where he does pre-recorded videos. And he's lovely. He's charming and he's funny and he's very personable. And he's everything these guys are not.
Criminals. We talk about crime and criminals, as I said that, but it's a fear of people who also don't commit crimes too. I just mean in the criminals we talk about.
And so you see, she's constantly worried about the fact that he's cheating, that he's going to leave, that perhaps he doesn't love her. These are things that are always on her mind. And that
he wasn't cheating, but he didn't love her. He even said as much. He said he never even told her that he loved her. All of the things that took place between them, it was like under a year from the time they met to the time that she committed the murder. I don't know that exactly for sure, but it's very close to it. It was a matter of months that she moved in on him and got pregnant very quickly.
That naturally leads into the pregnancy. So she's trying to get Wade to stay. She initially tries to get him to stay through money, through wealth. That's where the whole McCon Point estate that's worth 4 points.
Actually, I'm going to ask you guys, what would people think? I was thinking of doing like a book channel or a book. I don't know, doing it on this channel, but I love like the classics and I would love to share some of them with y'all if you were interested. So maybe I'll make a proper poll some other time. Anyway, just saying.
$7 million, almost $5 million. She dangles this.
But we could read stuff that's in the public domain, you know, not get into trouble.
Carrot. Like, hey, Wade, I know you've wanted this your whole life. And not only, by the way, speaking about performances, how about she knows this guy. She meets Wade in October and she tells him within like weeks that she's going to buy this property because she's an oil heiress from her grandparents. So they in December of 2020, she gets the whole family together. And they have that you remember in the documentary, they film her performing for no reason, by the way.
And let's be honest, nobody could give up during that moment. It was like the most.
Well, I think they're all kind of stunned.
Nobody cared.
I think the families, I think they're all stunned by the fact that like, here's Wade about to get, supposedly in their minds, like, about to get a $5 million property.
Well, but nobody's showing that on their faces. They're all
stunned.
What do you mean? Stunned by her performance or stunned by
the whole situation? It's all so bizarre. Like, I mean,
she's like, I think there's a part of them farm like chestnuts or what was it? Like they're going to farm pecans.
Yeah, it's Pecan Point, I think is the name of it.
Oh, Pecan Point. And yeah, but she was, they filmed it and her announcement, she's reading it and everyone's just sitting there like this.
Right, but it still goes back to that performance. She can't just.
The thing is that they're not describing very well what happened, right? So she pretended that she was going to inherit. She had no connection with her family, and the way that she got away with that was by pretending that she was close with her grandparents, but that her mother was like, you know, sick in the head and was trying to get her kept out of the family fortunes. So her whole thing was that she came from money and that eventually she was going to inherit this trust fund worth $8 million. And she got into talks, much like Corey Richens, over buying like a $4 million property or something that she couldn't afford.
Just buy the property.
She can't just buy the property.
Which she never did because she didn't have money.
Right, she didn't have the money, but she can't buy the property and just, like a normal person would buy the property and then move in and like family would know.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have this big
Actually, you
production.
never let anybody know for the most part. You'd probably be like, let's just kind of quietly do this and not make a big deal out of it. Yeah. She's like, I'll hold my beer.
Yeah, I hope he steers clear too. I don't know if y'all noticed over here I'm going to share this tab again for a second. I'm really not listening to them anymore. I don't know if anybody is interested in even hearing any more of this, but don't know if y'all noticed over here in the look at our perfect life videos as we got thingy here from Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo. So I was extremely disappointed to find out that she is pals with these idiots, because there is no way that she hasn't seen or heard. And so, yeah, I was really disappointed in her, and I immediately stopped following her, and I've never gone back to look at anything that she ever did again. So just saying. I hope that Paul strikes me as so genuine that he wouldn't like Lauren, right? That he wouldn't enjoy her company, that he would just steer away from her naturally. I could be wrong, and I hope to God he never gets taken in by her.
I'm gonna let them all know that I'm buying this, even though I'm not.
Right. So they have this big production within 2 months of meeting about this property that she's buying that she can't buy because she doesn't have the money because it's all a lie. It's all a fantasy.
But you're right, it's also keeping Wade there. It's also keeping Wade there, right?
It's absolutely keeping him there.
I have heard this, this story with people that lie before, this independent wealth thing,
Right.
I'm wealthy and people, yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. And so you have this first attempt with the wealth. And again, this is where Wade becomes this vehicle through which she all of her machinations become enacted through Wade. Mm-hmm. So Wade, by the way, Wade seems like a really nice guy.
And a hard worker, very
hard worker, nice guy. Wade is just sort of like caught in the middle of this hurricane, right?
He doesn't even know what happened.
He doesn't even know.
He starts dating this woman. All of a sudden, it's his fiance, and she's going to have his baby. And I think he's like, "How did this happen?"
Wade says at the beginning of the documentary, Wade says that so they met at a rodeo in August of 2019.
Actually, Lauren just had more insight there than John did about Wade, because he literally just got taken for a ride.
And then I think like by September, she's dangling this property. And then he just says innocently, he's like, I thought she was pretty, and I thought we could just go to dinner and talk. Right? He basically says something like that. And then it becomes like pecan point. And then a couple months after that, when it becomes clear she's not going to buy this property, now she becomes pregnant.
And you're right. That is about a fear of rejection and abandonment and him leaving, right?
Shut up, Lauren. Molly Colleen says, Janice, so was Kathy not aware of anything, I assume? I think that Kathy was aware. I have seen comments on her channel from people saying, are you serious? So I think she is aware. I think it's been established that she is aware.
He won't leave me if I'm about to buy this $5 million property. And when she realizes she can't carry that, lie on forever, she becomes pregnant.
Right. She becomes pregnant. That's her next
step,
her next ploy, her next chess move.
Right.
So
and she can maybe dangle that one for a little bit longer, 9 months or 10 months.
Right. She can keep that one going for exactly, because eventually the banks are going to figure out pretty quickly that most people don't have $5 million.
She can only create so many
and not only
numbers and fake personas. Like she was faking voices and AI.
Oh my gosh. She had
Lauren and all her sock accounts, literally from the picture on her Facebook that we looked at last week, where you can see her writing on her paper that says delete sock. That must mean delete sock account, right? This is Lauren with all of her fake little behind the scenes maneuvering in the group chats, pretending to be other people, to like her own comments or talk shit about her own comments or whatever. They are describing Lauren again.
Had fake social media accounts.
This is what I'm saying, right? Do not underestimate how dangerous this woman can be. Christina, God knows I love you, and your warrior spirit is absolutely a balm to my soul. But please do not underestimate these people.
She had fake emails. She used a voice transformation app. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
It also shows you how far these people that do want to lie and create a fake persona can go.
Yeah.
Okay, so how far these people who lie and create a false persona can go. Somebody clip that. I'll do it later. HMS Gen X lady says, did anyone email Chris Cuomo about John? I can't believe he had John on. As far as I remember, Cuomo is pretty problematic himself, right? So to me, it's hit and miss if he knew whether he would keep him off anyway, right? I mean, certainly Jesse, what's his name, from Law and Crime, knows about these two. And he was there at their something recently, wasn't he? So, you know, a lot of these people cover for each other. Not that I have any dirt on Jesse, I genuinely don't, but I don't understand why anybody is standing these two.
You know,
Absolutely.
and it is scary, you know, what's real and what's not these days.
Absolutely. And so I think this might be an interesting place to kind of interject with
Anything at all of interest would be.
people have asked me, specifically Grayson has asked me many times, do you think she has a personality disorder?
People have asked me, literally, it's fucking Grayson, right? Christ. Do you think she has a personality disorder? No, she seems fine. She seems good. I'm sure she's good. Yeah.
And
Her personality is just perfectly ordered, obviously.
Specifically, a text from this morning said, "You can't diagnose, but I'm casting my vote. Can't wait to hear what you might think."
Oh, and what was your vote?
I said sociopath. I don't know. That was just me and my ChatGPT where I got personality disorders and traits.
I think.
Did you see the expression on Lauren's face there? She looks like she's very disapproving of Grayson's little outburst and inserting herself. Oh, look at picture. Look at Lauren's face. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to do the. I gotta do the screenshot. Hang on. Look at that face. What a capture. What a capture. Sorry, I'm being slow. Sorry. Here we go. Where am I gonna put it in? We'll put it in a preview. Okay. Here we go. Okay, sorry. It just looks so stupid there. To make a good thumbnail.
No, I definitely. I mean, there's like at least one personality disorder, if not more. I mean, I'm going to speculate. I haven't asked him yet. I'm going to speculate. Oh yeah, you're probably right. But like, I think, well, yeah, like definitely like a ton of antisocial qualities. Like as you said, I don't even know if there's.
I feel like that would piss Lauren off too. HMS Gen X lady says allegedly Grayson and John share the same type of humor according to the Patreon audio. Yeah, that's right. I bet that would piss her off. I bet that would piss her off.
The self. So I would say antisocial, but then on top of that, like maybe borderline.
well, guess what? Guess what? I don't have to answer the question because during the mitigation part of this, during the death penalty part of the trial,
They brought it up.
they brought in experts, and I'm going to defer. I don't have to diagnose because I have people do
You
it
never
for me.
do.
Forensic psychologist Dr. Michael Arambula, Arambula, he testified.
He just found Tanner Horners.
Oh, he testified in Tanner Horners. Too.
Also,
Like,
Oh,
oh,
he- he must be their go-to guy. So I'm
Like, I just really think that's super stupid and unprofessional to have her blurting in from the sides, but it's already a car crash. So what the hell?
going to read you what he
Shout
said.
out to Dr. Arambula.
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 Shout out to Dr. Arambula. Here's what he said on the stand. Quote, I was looking for some kind of mental deterioration that would account for that, meaning the murder. But instead I saw that she stuck to her plan and there was no remorse afterwards. In this case, there's nothing regarding any mental illness and nothing regarding intoxication. And Miss Parker falls in the category of fetal abductors, which are rare, but fall into a class of women who do not have mental illness. The murders are planned. They're premeditated. They have plans for after, unquote. And then he went on to say that he believes she does have a borderline personality disorder.
Oh, I just heard personality disorder. Okay, keep going.
She has borderline. He believed that she had borderline personality disorder and or other personality disorders in cluster B. So Arambula says, number one, it's premeditated, no mental illness, which, by the way, I think it depends on what he means by mental illness. There's different, because I'm not diagnosing here, but it would be hard for me to believe that she hasn't had some struggles over the years with maybe major depression.
Yeah, depression, anxiety.
Or anxiety, right?
I agree. If you're afraid that somebody is going to leave you, that's anxiety, right? If you're afraid of abandonment and if you have no sense of self, that would certainly lead to depression.
If you have low self-esteem, if you have a very fragile self.
Yeah, I think of that too. So I don't know what he means by no mental illness.
But
Is he
mental
referring
illness,
to
he's
like
probably talking
schizophrenia.
Yeah, he's
or
probably talking about psychosis, schizophrenia.
psychosis. Yeah.
But he does say that he thinks she has borderline personality disorder. And then the defense brought in a psychiatrist, a forensic psychiatrist. His name is Dr. Gribben, Gripon. He interviewed Taylor twice for a total of 5 hours when she was.
Yeah, I always feel extremely more convinced when Lauren agrees too with Dr. John's analysis, because then it's like having two extremely, wise professionals confirming each other's diagnosis. It's pretty impressive. CH says John and Grayson would be nothing without Lauren. They all know this. Scary thought. Yeah, right. It's true. I think you're absolutely true. But the thing is that Lauren, I'm not sure that Lauren knows that though, right? I think that Lauren thinks that she needs Dr. John. Megan did a Patreon that looks interesting, $25, so I'm not able to listen. The title looks like a doozy. Is it the dreadful response? where she talks about, she's responding to 2 videos that I made. But they are both videos. One of them contains an email that I received from a immediate family member of hers, and the other one contains an email that I received from Summer. So I think that she's actually responding more to her family member and to Summer than she is to me, honestly. I think that that's who she feels that she needs to respond in the face of, right? Because they both know her, right? And they can tell truths about her that clearly I don't have personal knowledge of Megan. So I think that that was what was upsetting her, and that's why she did that. And I don't know, Melanie, if you're talking about that video or if it's a different one. Oh, you're saying yes, it seems to be. Yeah, I think that's the one. We watched it. We watched the preview of it yesterday. There's like a little 30-second preview, and she says that, right? She mentions that she says, oh, somebody told me about this creator, Dreadful Penny. Somebody told me that she made these videos, which is exactly the manipulation she tried to use on Kresha, to make it seem like, oh, she's not even paying any attention to us. And she's got people out there that are on her behalf that come and tell her about things, right? So she could sort of dismiss me as this creator that she'd never heard of, who she has very definitely heard of. And I've actually seen her respond to comments about me. So she definitely knows who I am. So, and then she talked about Summer and this other family member of hers. So I think that those two have the greatest ability to unmask her, and that's what she's afraid of. But she's also, she did it behind a paywall on Patreon, and she had 9 viewers. So I'm not sure who she thinks she's straightening the record out for, because nobody's watching.
He was in jail. He described her as, quote, a pathological liar. And he said that she had a mix of psychiatric disorders, including narcissism,
I do.
Okay.
borderline personality disorder, and antisocial and histrionic. In other words, he basically says she has.
Oh, God, yeah, they're boring. Debbie Niner fan says, do you think Lauren hooked up with John because she was needy and liked his title, his professional title, which they make sure we all know? Absolutely, I do. I also think that she was very, I do think that she was desperate. Yes, she was not having any success in the dating world. And they did seem to have this interest in true crime. So I do think that there is a genuine meeting of the brain dead idiots. Like, I think there is a genuine connection between them. But I also do think that she uses him for his credentials and he uses her for her, she's the trophy wife. That is my opinion about what's going on here. But I do think that they are definitely like enmeshed in terms of they need each other to keep their own images, right? She needs him to see her as a professional journalist, and he needs her to see him as this, top tier psychologist, right? At the top of his game. So it's a folie à deux, and now they've added Grayson. So it's a folie à throuple now.
Everything. Cluster B. She's got the whole cluster.
That's all of cluster B. That is everything. Narcissism, histrionic, borderline, antisocial. Wow.
He also said that one of her main motivations for being a pathological liar, so I've explained it a little differently.
She's like a walking cluster B.
She is. She's like
DSM.
Yeah, she should have her picture in there. She should have
another clip right there, right? She's a walking DSM. Look at that stupid expression on her face.
Picture there for having the whole constellation of cluster B traits, qualities.
Bringing the levity.
He says
that, my name is cluster B.
The reason
bringing the levity to the fetal abduction by maternal evisceration. Good job, guys.
She's a pathological liar because he says, quote, when her external world is not pleasant, her internal world is pleasant. Now,
when her external world is not pleasant, her internal world is pleasant. Fascinating.
Which is,
so in other words, she just seeks chaos. Like chaos makes her feel great.
I mean, I think this is a good point, right? Random old lady says, she the trophy? Ugh, I quit. So but the thing is, right, it's like, to me, John is not a trophy and neither is Lauren. I wouldn't want either one of them anywhere near me. But to each other, right? These are both disordered people and they're looking to someone else to fill the empty void in them. And that's what they're seeing in each other, is someone who can make them whole. Between them, they make up a whole person, is kind of what's going on here.
Great.
Well,
I think it's
even
more
worse than that.
I think it's more a version of what I've been talking about with lying, that it's she's creating these fictions to protect herself against shame and fragility, and it gives her control. Yeah, she definitely wants to create chaos.
Yeah.
The one thing that lying does is it challenges other people's reality. It challenges other people's perceptions of the world. And when you do that, you create chaos.
Yeah.
When you say, this is my version of the world and you're wrong, and you know that version is not correct, it throws you into disarray.
Right? This is exactly what they did with their 9-hour live and all of their phone calls to the police and all of their TROs and all of their fucking bullshit since then. All of their calls to Bobby Joe and et cetera, et cetera. It's exactly what they're describing.
Right? It upsets your normal perceptions of the world, and that's chaos. So yeah.
Yeah, Turtle Boy was on to these guys in the first fucking 5 minutes, man. He figured them out instantly. Like, they're not high. I don't know how they're literally fooling anybody. Personally, I don't know how they're fooling a single person. They are so transparent.
Yes, pathological liars do create chaos. They do, and they do it, by the way, to control.
Exactly.
Control and make themselves feel, to even just feel in control, right?
If there's a dispute, if there's a power struggle over different versions of reality, and they want their version to win, and that's called gaslighting, by the way. If they're gaslighting you and arguing that their perception is correct, and you feel crazy, or you feel,
and you're questioning reality.
You feel a little bit disoriented from it.
Except that none of us were questioning reality. We all knew you were fucking lying. Just saying, that's the only difference here. We all knew that they were lying. I certainly fucking knew from the word go that this bitch was lying. I didn't know Christina. I didn't know anything about anything that had happened. I was completely out of the fucking loop. And as soon as she opened her stupid mouth on that 9-hour live, I knew she was lying.
Then you're off balance. You're off kilter. And in some ways, you've given them some control.
Yeah.
They're controlling other people because they're trying to throw you off balance. They're trying to throw you into this chaotic state so that you don't know how to respond. And so in that sense, it is a pure power struggle.
I think you're right.
Question. Is there a world in which people who are, sorry, in this case, I've been following this for years. Is there a world in which pathological liars, like, they get to a point where they don't even realize they're lying? They're just doing it. Like, and they legit believe it.
Well, yeah, Lord.
I don't know, Gray Bay, you tell me. You lying little sack of lies. You tell us. Do you know that you're lying? When you're lying? Here, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm just going to really quickly share. There we go. I'm just going to share this very little short that I made. You can all see it.
Because I am in an absolute faith crisis, and that is humanism. I think my entire life, I have believed in kindness and empathy and like the human spirit and being there for another and like world peace and Mother Teresa shit and making the world a better place. And I like literally pity the 14-year-old girl I was that wrote a poem saying, I want to be known for kindness.
I think that there are things that have given me hope in life, but I don't feel like I have a lot of hope in humanity these days, and hope in kindness, and hope in what comes next. And I think I was just always raised like, I don't know, I grew up in private school. I grew up in going to church, and I grew up in, you know, similar to you, but not Mormon. And I think everything I've dealt with the last year is directly against everything I grew up believing in.
So it goes by kind of fast, so I'll read it to you. It says, Lauren and Grayson employ law enforcement to intimidate innocent people. Anyway, sorry.
So you're okay with me calling Gigi, and you're okay with me calling both ex-employees, or just Stephanie?
I'm okay with you calling.
Because is Colette not part of it, pretty much?
What do you think? I think
Colette has more to lose, so she'd be more scared because she has a career.
I think if the call is, look, you're running a fine line, call both. Call both.
Right? That's the kindness of these two, right? So Gray Bay's question to Dr. John, right? Did they know they're lying? Yeah. I mean, we don't even know. Molly Collins says kindness is suing a poor guy for $300K who dented your car. We don't even know that she didn't dent his car, right? He denies the accusations. I had a nice little text conversation with the man last week, and he had to sign an NDA, so he's not able to talk about the case. But he did say that he had seen some of my videos, so I think he has an idea of who Gray Bay is. Just saying.
Or I think, yeah, to protect themselves from shame.
So-
Lori Vallow.
So we're gonna get into this issue when we talk about the body cam footage.
I'm going to go ahead and say it's because she's about to. Unused Barron area says, why does Grayson sound like she's going to confess to her unrequited love for Lauren? I'm not sure it's unrequited. I mean, Lauren doesn't really know how to love, but she does know how to use people who love her and make them think that she loves them back. Just saying.
In the hospital, because that's absolutely
wild.
fascinating. It's
Because
just,
you're right. You see that moment of like, she knows.
does she?
Ooh, okay. Keep going. That was a great
Does
hook.
she?
That was a great hook.
Yeah, right. So
Okay.
The hospital body cam is just, there's nothing like it. It's just unbelievable. So, but that's where we're going to answer that question.
But why is he so excited by that, right? Why does he sound like he has just hit the fucking jackpot when he's talking about the body cam footage from the hospital? Because that's the point at which she has already murdered Regan, and they're trying to save the baby. So not sure why he thinks this is something to get fucking giddy about, honestly.
Which, by the way, so that will take us to the next segment, which is the pregnancy. We have to talk about the pregnancy.
The Western maternity
Oh,
photography.
you're getting way ahead with that one.
Well, it's part of the pregnancy.
The pregnancy will bring us it'll start moving us into the realm of the psychology.
I would guess that they probably have. Kelly Kell says, has he ever watched Lauren's body cam footage? He's in the body cam footage and a lot of it, right? Because he's on the phone talking to the cop saying, hey, buddy, hey, you and me, buddy, you and me, buddy. We're both law enforcement, buddy. We're on the same side, buddy, friend of mine, buddy. Trying to, throw his weight around. So, God, why are they still talking?
Fetal abductors. The pregnancy is you have to say the pregnancy is her master performance, right? That's her master lie.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the pregnancy is, well, actually, let's back up a little bit, because I think this is really fascinating about Taylor Parker, is how many of her lies are based on something, her body. Her body becomes kind of the place of a lot of her lying, and it becomes sort of evidence. It becomes a place where her lies come to life. And so if you think about her medical illnesses, in some ways she takes these fictions and she makes them more realistic by saying that they're her body.
Yeah.
So she says she has MS. So she says she has cancer. She's like,
true.
Nobody can find any of these things. But it's hard to really dispute. If you're arguing that this is happening to my body, and even if it's subjective, in some sense she's making them more realistic. And what's fascinating to me about that narrative is there are issues here going back to her childhood. We haven't really talked about some of her childhood stuff yet too much. But her body becomes the site of a lot of her shame.
Yeah.
So isn't it interesting that so she has this weight issue when she's 14. Her parents divorced when she's 12. Her mother, Shauna talks about the divorce. She doesn't say much about it, but there's some implication. This is really interesting. There's some implication that the divorce must have been messy because, according to Shauna, and I don't know if this is accurate, but Taylor starts using, these are Shauna's words, about the grandmother starts feeding Taylor food for comfort. That's the term she used. So she becomes a comfort eater. She picks up a ton of weight. I don't know how much, but by the time she's 14, she weighs 250 pounds, according to Shauna. So what's interesting about that is here you have...
None of this is interesting, John. You're boring as shit. This is interesting. Did you just make that, Ancient Teapot? Did you literally just make that? From that pause from a minute ago? Because I absolutely love it. Thank you so ever so much. Saint Lauren and that Mother Teresa shit. She really likes the Mother Teresa shit, our Lauren. Anyway, thank you for sharing that. I love it. Let's go back to these idiots. Are they on your screen? They are. Let me press play.
Taylor, who, a couple of things. Number one, we can make an assumption that the divorce must have been somewhat traumatic because she's eating emotionally
Right.
for comfort to calm herself, right? To
Right.
deal with that trauma. Number one. Number two, we can make the assumption, I think that's important here, is that she struggles with some emotional regulation.
Mhm.
If she's comfort eating, number one, and she's self-medicating through food, number two, I think we can assume that if we go back to this idea of mirroring and attunement with parents, that she's lacked that to some degree.
Mhm.
That if in the creation of a false self that becomes Taylor Parker, I think it's probable, or it's possible that this becomes a metaphor. Her body and her weight gain becomes a metaphor for her inability, for her emotional dysregulation, for her inability to really regulate her emotions because she never had that opportunity to, apparently, in her family.
Yeah.
So and again, I'm making a lot of inference here. This is speculation, but the pregnancy.
DSABO6426 says, I read that Mother Teresa was basically a sadist. Yeah, I understand. I think that's basically settled fact at this point. That she was misunderstood, that she was this amazing person who was helping all the people that were, the people living in the streets in the poorest parts of India and stuff like that, in Calcutta and everything. And in fact, she was like keeping all these people and withholding pain meds from them and stuff. And she apparently was, yes, a sadist and enjoyed the suffering of others. So yeah, apparently has been basically proven to be true.
Her body then becomes the site and the source of shame when she's very young.
Oh, interesting.
And
Right.
it's possible.
Okay.
It's possible. We don't know. It's possible she may have.
I mean, I feel like John's analysis of Mother Teresa, Happy Hiker, would be the same analysis that he gives of literally every single person he ever analyzes. So
I don't know if Shauna's version's true, but it's possible that she may have had weight issues prior to 14.
Who knows?
Right? But if she didn't, either way, her body becomes the manifestation of her.
you guys, Llama Pajama is having a faith crisis. I'm sorry, Llama Pajama. Maybe you and Lauren could get together and strengthen your faiths in humanisms. Because Lauren believes in being human. I don't know if you know that.
Her shame.
Interesting.
And then later on, you get this, that she's using this prosthetic,
Belly.
which is a way of putting on weight. It's putting it on in a way that's not real.
Huh.
But she's revisiting that shame
Interesting.
from her childhood.
Oh, shut the fuck up. There was no indication anywhere that she's revisiting the shame of her childhood from being pregnant. Shut up.
And so the pregnancy becomes not only proof of this fantasy of
Sorry, Llama Pajama.
Having Wade's baby.
having Wade's
Being
baby,
Wade's baby.
right? Having Wade's baby.
Fuck, shut up, Lauren, you imbecile. Yeah, sorry. I feel like that would probably make your crisis worse. I didn't mean to upset you. I'm very sorry.
But it also solves a lot of problems for her, in the sense that it solves a lot of problems because a baby, in theory, a baby offers unconditional love.
Yeah.
So it gives her, in her fantasy world, this is a way for her to get.
Okay, he has not mentioned yet that she already has 2 children that she doesn't see. So, this whole idea that she's going to get a baby, so she's going to have unconditional love, and that's what it's all about, because she has all her life been feeling like she's not good enough, and so a baby is going to make her. She's got 2 fucking existing children that she never sees. Also, she's had a hysterectomy and she can't have a baby. So what the actual fuck are you talking about, John?
Unconditional love
Unconditional
again.
love.
It's a way for her.
Because her children are growing up.
It's a way for her to become a solution to possible abandonment.
Yes.
If Wade leaves her, she still has the baby.
Yes.
It becomes a solution to her infertility. That's another tremendous source of shame.
Mm-hmm.
She has a
Except that she can't have a baby. She has had a full-on hysterectomy. What the fuck are you even talking about? There is no baby.
hysterectomy. She can't have a child. It solves that problem. It also solves, here's another thing that's really important. She gave up custody of her kids.
Oh, you're going to mention that?
She can't get pregnant.
Good thinking.
In other words, I think there's a deep source of shame here for her around this idea of motherhood and being a mother. She's not, her kids aren't even in this documentary.
What are you even talking about? The woman doesn't even seem to have any shame, for God's sake.
They're a little bit.
Well, they're there for the gender reveal,
Right. I mean,
which is so wild. They walk out with her for the gender reveal. Her older children.
So the pregnancy becomes a source of reparation. It becomes, for her in her fantasy world, it becomes a solution to a lot of these problems she's experiencing with shame. So if there's shame around her being a mother, it solves that too. It also solves the problem of her relationship, of whatever relationship issue she's having. It creates, so let's say that it seems like Wade might be distancing himself from her to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
It solves that because it forces him closer to her, no matter what.
No, it doesn't.
It forces him to stay with her to some degree.
Well, they're still together. They live in the same house. He is literally out of the house from dawn until dusk every single fucking day of the week and has literally nothing to do with her. And they actually talk about that in the film, right? They talk about the fact that he just was extremely busy with his own life and with his farm, and he just stayed away from her. So it wasn't really that hard for him because he was just never around.
And so interestingly enough, that I think for me, if you go back to these earlier issues around weight, you start seeing, so she loses this weight, presumably reducing her sources of shame to some degree, but not really. They don't disappear. They're not erased. She still has, if she did have trauma from the weight gain, that's still there.
Yeah.
If she had shame from the weight, it's still there. But this pregnancy, ultimately this pregnancy becomes this catch-all for all this shame and all these issues swirling around her shame. Also, let's think about other issues of shame that she has. She's lost custody of her kids. She's had multiple divorces. She's had a history of relationship failures, infertility, first hysterectomy, job instability. She can't keep a job in adulthood. She's been fired from all these jobs.
Financial issues,
right? Lack of money.
Like Lauren, right? How many jobs was Lauren able to keep? Not that many, right? She could barely even get them.
It's not going to solve that problem, but it's by creating this, by faking this pregnancy and having this imagined baby. I think it really becomes compensatory. It really becomes a solution to so many of these issues she's having, to all the shame she's experiencing. And so if we're trying to understand Taylor Parker and we're talking about this idea of the false self, this is her attempt to reverse that. This is her attempt, even though it's all fiction, right? The irony here, there's a paradox here. She's created this elaborate web of lies and all these fictions that she can never reverse. Mm-hmm. But she thinks that by having this baby and by being pregnant, that somehow she's going to reverse, she's going to solve all of it. And that, by the way, it's
rather than coming to terms with all of her lies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I just don't think that that's really accurate though, right? Like, it seems like she didn't have the plan, just from what I watched. It seems like she didn't have a plan to steal a baby right until the end, right? The plan came right at the end. And I think that Taylor, like these two, like Lauren, like all of these people, Megan, all of them, they just say whatever works in the minute to get them out of whatever hot water they're in the minute. They have very little impulse control, and they are not very good at thinking through the thing so that they can get out of, actually out of trouble. They just say what they need to in the minute. And I think that that's what she was doing, right? She was just saying what she needed to as she went along. Like, for instance, what she needed was for everybody to think that she was this extremely wealthy and very generous. And so she bought her mother-in-law a car. And she didn't think about, it's very impulsive. She didn't think about in a few weeks, there's going to, it's going to all come out, right? They just do in the moment. And then in a few weeks, when she never made any payments, she told a lie about how, it had to go in for a recall. So it got her out of trouble for that moment, right? And that's how these people work. That's how Lauren works. It seems very obvious that they should understand this. They just do whatever works in the moment, and they have very little impulse control.
It's important. The most important point here to understand about this is this explains why she's all in on the pregnancy. This explains how she could go from this false. People keep saying, well, people know she's lying. People know she had a hysterectomy. They're like, well, when is she going to have a miscarriage, right? She's not going to have a miscarriage because she's so invested.
That's what's sad, is a lot of people knew and nobody thought that she would go this far. But at what point, again, do you see the red flags enough to realize how far someone will go?
Right. But I think you have to understand the source of her shame in her body from the past.
No, you don't. And in fact, the whole point of this whole movie was showing that people did know. And they still didn't expect her to do what they did. They put in precautions to stop her stealing a newborn because that's where they thought she would go. So I don't think that we need to understand any of that.
And how this pregnancy and this baby and the
success of this pregnancy.
The success of this pregnancy and these issues around infertility and motherhood.
She can't have a miscarriage. Because
She can't have a
that's a failure.
exactly. That's a failure.
That's more fertility issues.
And she can't be exposed. Under no circumstances can she be exposed, because that would increase her shame. That would make things a million times worse for her.
Right.
That would mean that all her defense.
And how can you fucking know that? How can you know that? God, I mean, so for me, like if she had a miscarriage, I don't necessarily think that it would be that she was ashamed. It would be that she would not have a relationship anymore, because the only thing holding the relationship together was the fact that there was a baby. So I don't necessarily believe his whole, she couldn't handle the shame of being a failure and having a miscarriage. She would have lost everything if she had a miscarriage, right? She would have lost everything. She had nothing. She didn't even have a fucking job.
And all her adaptive strategies and all her line would be exposed. She would be exposed, and her shame would increase exponentially.
Yeah.
It would. In fact, I would argue that it would increase to the point where it might increase to the point where. Well, it did increase to the point where she harmed someone else, but it's possible it could have increased to the point where she could have engaged in self-harm.
Because that's how desperate she was.
Right. So, unfortunately,
In the Valley of the Kings says, I actually don't even know if I asked what documentary film this is even about. These two keep me really busy. I have no clue what they're even talking about. Yeah, they're talking about the maternal instinct that Taylor Parker, who murdered a pregnant woman and stole her baby.
she acted
That's
out.
scary.
She acted out externally rather than internally. She could have had this miscarriage and somehow justified all this, but because of her investment in this, and because psychologically and emotionally, it meant so much to her.
Yeah, I just don't think that that's true. I mean, she's already got 2 children, and she's shown that she's able to be fertile and have a baby. I think that she wanted the baby to keep the relationship.
She carried it out. She felt like she had no choice.
The desperation is what makes her so dangerous.
Exactly. And not only the desperation.
Right? This is exactly what I'm saying about Lauren, and that I don't want any of us to forget that she can be very dangerous. And if she is, really threatened with losing everything, we don't know what she might do, and I think that that's important to keep in mind. Lauren is a badly disordered person, and she's pretty desperate, right? We've already seen what she's willing to do with law enforcement.
And made her so dangerous.
Not only the desperation, but the moment.
The moment.
The moment when there's a moment at the end where Wade's mother, Connie, Wade's mother, Connie, calls him and says, look, we've got all this evidence. This is days before the crime.
Something's not right here.
Something's not right. We've got all this evidence. Everybody's telling me that this is that this is not a real pregnancy. You got to do something. And Wade finally goes to her. This is the moment that pushes everything over the edge. Wade goes to Taylor and he says, I know you're not pregnant. I know this is nonsense. Which, by the way, as an aside.
Oh, shut up. Happy Hiker says it doesn't matter which case. Perfect, John. They all have childhood trauma, guilt, and cluster B of some sort. I mean, the fact is that that's basically they do, right? I mean, it's people with personality disorders that act out this way. And the prisons are full of them. So that's what I was sort of saying that earlier before you got here, Happy Hiker, that I'm not even sure what their show has to offer long term, because he always just comes up with the same thing, right? If he was good, I just don't think he's that insightful. I have watched other psychologists who are way more insightful than Dr. John, and way more. I feel like I learn way more from watching them than I ever learned from watching Dr. John. Live Abuse Free is actually a psychologist who does videos about this, and also The Little Shaman. I don't know if you guys are familiar with The Little Shaman, but she's not actually a clinical psychologist or anything. She's just kind of an expert in narcissism. And her videos are absolutely perfect if you're wanting to learn more about narcissism. She usually does these little sort of 15, 20-minute bites about one particular aspect. And she's extremely no nonsense. And she's very knowledgeable. I would absolutely recommend her.
I'd if this was you, I'd be like, can I touch the baby? Can you show me the baby?
I think he probably tried that and it wasn't working.
Right. Apparently she must have kept him quite a distance.
Right. And I'd be like, no, you can't. If I was faking my pregnancy.
So Wade approaches her.
Lauren knows just what she'd do if she was faking her pregnancy. Yeah, she just said, "Oh, I'm embarrassed. I feel bad. I've gained so much weight. I'm ashamed of my body. I don't want you to see me." You know, and he didn't really want to be super involved with her anyway. He was very ambivalent about all of it. So whatever, it was pretty easy for her to get away with it.
And she says to him, this is chilling. She says a few things to him. She says she's tired, that's the term he used. She's tired of his family calling her a liar. So this gets to that issue of if she's a liar, then she's going to be exposed, and being exposed again is terrifying to someone.
Yeah, like these guys don't like us calling them liars either, but I'm also getting really bored of these guys. So I don't know how much more I can take of them, but I did want to read a little bit more from this, from this paper, because I feel like we could actually learn something instead of just listening to John's nonsense, right? So I'm just going to read you a few of the things that I highlighted. So from the introduction, it says, when such unusual crimes occur, they attract attention from the press, security agencies, and attorneys, and academic articles regarding FAME have appeared in specialty journals. The abductors share unique behavioral profiles and lessons from a study of abductor modus operandi, motivation, intent, planning, and the dynamics in the attack can inform public safety, right? So these are all the things that John didn't bother to say. He was like, oh, it's just so rare. We can't even talk about the specifics of perpetrators of this crime. But look, they got all this. They got all kinds of demographics, right? They've got the dates, they got the state, the abductor age, the abductor marital status, victim age, victim race, ethnicity. Down here, we've got the prior meeting of the abductor and the victim, the initial location, the crime location, the victim mother's, how far along she was at the time of the crime, whether the fetus lived or died, the weapon that was used, how they started the attack, whether there were additional victims, co-offenders. Like, they have a lot of data, even though there were only 15 crimes, and he brushes all this aside as though it's nothing. And I just have to give you my own very special interpretation of this because nobody's already done it, and it's already been done. So he's, again, like, why did he withhold all of the information from this paper from us so that he could make an AI picture of Pinocchio to explain something that he has already been perfectly well explained here, right? It's just so frustrating. It talks about the relationship status, right? All but one of the abductors were known to be in a partner relationship. Despite knowing that they were not pregnant, those in a relationship cultivated a false claim of pregnancy, unbeknownst to their significant others. The abductors used their fake pregnancy to maintain their partner in the relationship, right? Fertility, more than half of the abductors reported having children from a prior relationship. Results, the structure of the crime. The murder plan was invariably premeditated. Analysis of the 15 completed non-family FAME cases highlighted by the same 7 steps to the murder as previously reported by Burgess' colleagues are expanded below, right? It's very predictable. And the fact that he has not bothered to share any of this so that it could be like, because their whole thing is, right, we're going to give you all this information so that you can be informed, and maybe something like this will not happen, right? We can prevent it because everybody is so knowledgeable. So instead, he hides all that information that might help people to make up his own fucking story about Pinocchio. Right? Secure the newborn, 317, secure the newborn through the cesarean operation. Another part of planning the homicide involves seeking medical information on childbirth and cesarean sections to prepare themselves for the surgical evisceration of the fetus from the victim mother. They all fucking did this, right? Does he mention that? No. There's not enough data. Like, if 15 of 15 people are doing that, I think that's enough data personally, right? To make some inferences that might be useful for public information. Inform her family and others that she has birthed the baby she possessed. Larceny of a baby is the goal of the family offense, but what happens to the baby born of such a dramatic crime? In this sample, All of the surviving newborns were either kept by the abductor until arrested or taken to a hospital until the killer was arrested. Most abductors sought medical assistance for the baby to ensure its well-being, to orchestrate the impression that the newborn was theirs, right? But and opposite to that was they discarded the mothers. They cared for the well-being of the babies, but they did not care for the well-being of the mothers. And I just feel like there was enough data here for him to have given us an actually interesting presentation where he could have given us some red flags to look out for, right? Ways to sort of maybe prevent this thing from happening in the future. And instead, he decided he was going to be extra about Pinocchio. Family crimes target expectant mothers, often younger than the perpetrator and who are physically vulnerable by virtue of being closer to term. The abductors are imposters who lie and identify a specific vulnerable woman and then plan a scenario. So she knew this woman because she did wedding photography and she had photographed her at her wedding, right? The afterthought with which the victim's remains are handled contrasts to the intensity with which the abductor sets up the intended victim by forging a sense of personal connection. These qualities underscore the brazenness of the abductor, particularly if these relationships develop and mature over time. The capacity to shut down human relatedness to someone with whom one cultivates a seemingly close and trusting friendship reflects gaps in one's pro-social personality and one's character disorder, right? Like these are all things that are super interesting that he could have presented in a lovely little format for us all to understand with little bullet points and all the rest of it, right? It would not have even taken very fucking long and we could have all learned something about it. Femme is a highly unusual crime. However, the case of Abductor 7 provides an excellent example of how awareness of femme crimes can assist justice. A deputy was called to the emergency room to where a 3 months premature infant was deceased, and a woman was claiming she gave birth on a country road. The deputy realized her story did not make sense and quickly suspected a femme crime, which was confirmed by a medical examination of Abductor 7. This instant identification that a femme crime had taken place came from the deputy's experience. He had worked on Abductor 5's case 5 years prior, right? So if that doesn't fucking highlight to you the importance of public education on this, I can't tell you what else would, right? And yet here's John. I'm going to talk about Pinocchio. And I'm going to completely ignore this extremely informative study and instead talk about personality disorders and violent crime. Like, I can't even imagine what he was thinking, except how can I make this about me? The victim-centered John Matthias. So I'm just going to have to call it, I think, today because I can't listen to these guys anymore. I don't think that they have anything to offer us of any particular value. The point in watching them anyway isn't to gain value from them, but to gain value from exposing them for who they really are. And I think that we've already done that, right? We don't need to watch anymore. Also, it is time for me to pack up and go home and feed my little dog. So I shall love you and leave you all. I am planning. If John had a pure psych degree, he would know the theoretical research has real life applications to help society. I mean, that's the whole fucking point of it. Why do it elsewise, right? It's the whole thing of taking all the data and being able to, whether it has internal validity or external validity or whatever. Like external validity is like, can we transfer this to real world situations, right? And yes, we can if we have the correct information. So I'm going to eventually get around to putting the link for that in the description for that paper, because it's a really interesting little paper and it's only about 8 pages long. So it's not a long read. And I'm sure some of you would be interested to see it. So I will love you and leave you until tomorrow, where we're going to start the 9-hour live together. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you guys so much for coming. I always enjoy your company so much. So hit the like on the way out if you haven't already. And I will see everybody tomorrow. Thanks for coming.